Before the sacred shrine, the brown-haired man knelt before her, gently lifting Emilan's hand. The saintess of the temple, he pleaded earnestly, "I am in desperate need of your help, saintess." The man's hands reached up, trying to grasp her hand. He slid his hands upward, speaking affectionately, "I will give you everything that I can." He stood up, parallel to her. Then he leaned close to her ear, smiling as he said, "So, will you give me the chance to serve you, saintess?" His sharp, crimson eyes stared intently at her, his captivatingly handsome face pulling his lips into a slight curve, like a venomous snake luring its prey. Emilan opened her eyes. She was lying on a lush green lawn, thinking to herself, "Where am I?" This was the first memory she received after realizing she had been transported to another world. She remembered, right after my 24th birthday, I crossed over into another world. I woke up to find myself in another world. Emilan sat up, noticing her hair had changed somewhat. It was a beautiful light pink color that left her bewildered, wondering, what's wrong with my hair color? And this outfit? Her ruby red eyes unconsciously glanced elsewhere. Surprisingly, before her was a group of people in pure white garments, bowing respectfully. The one in the lead also had white hair, just like the color he was wearing. He closed his eyes, smiled, and placed a hand on his chest, showing reverence. Greetings to the blessing of the Lord. Emilan was radiantly beautiful, with peach-pink hair and ruby-red eyes, complemented by fair skin and rosy lips. She looked at him, puzzled. The Lord? She continued to recall, upon arriving in this world, I, Emilan, had become a saintess. It wasn't easy for an actress to suddenly take on the role of saintess, as she and this saintess were clearly two completely different people. After half a year of trying and making mistakes, I was finally recognized as the saintess by the nobility and could freely enter and exit the royal palace. Today, as she was on her way to the palace, she happened to come across a man and a woman. Emilan thought to herself, I arrived earlier than planned, so I thought I'd stroll around the garden for a bit. She stood hidden behind the foliage, looking towards them. Isn't that Princess Ranela Nest, Joe? Ranela had jet black hair and blue eyes. At that moment, who knows what the man said to her? Her green eyes widened in surprise as she asked, "Oh my, really?" Emilan observed, silently assessing. The person she's talking to must be the young master of some marquis family. He then smiled shyly and replied, "It's no problem." Emilan described her based on her own perception. Princess Ranela Nesho is famous for her kindness and beautiful appearance. If this world were a novel, she would definitely be the female lead. She truly looks like an angel descended to earth. She observed, smiling to herself. At first I was jealous because there were so many wonderful men around the princess. But looking back now, it's a relief that I haven't fallen for anyone around Ranela. A female lead loved by everyone. A male lead who loves the female lead. And a saintess who falls for the male lead. I could have ended up on the path of a villain. But I have so many things to learn to become a saintess. She remembered herself buried under a thick pile of books on the table, complaining, "I'm busy studying, I don't have time for men." Emilan keenly realized there was a difference in how the handsome men treated her and the princess. Their love is only for one person, so I don't crave it at all, because it's not for me. He continued, because that's what the princess wants. Ranela gave a bright smile, clasping her hands reverently. "Thank you. All expenses will be covered by the duchy." Edward, wanting to appear generous, replied, "It's all right, just consider it a gift from me to you." But she didn't agree, saying decisively, "No, we must treat this as a proper exchange." Edward let out a somewhat embarrassed exclamation. She shyly looked away, her demeanor utterly adorable, and said softly, "Even so, I'm truly very happy. Even though my appointment with the crown prince is soon, I just can't bear to leave you, Lord Edward." Hearing this, he blushed, shyly using a book to cover his face. "Oh, princess." Emilan stood to the side, laughing to herself. Eavesdropping seems very interesting. Are these two flirting with each other? As Edward used the book to hide his face, he didn't notice that Ranela's expression had changed. She covered her mouth, looking at him with a contemptuous smile, as if looking at an idiot, completely different from her usual saintly appearance. Witnessing this, Emilan's eyes widened in shock. She broke into a cold sweat, exclaiming inwardly, "Great acting." Has her obedient personality been just an act all this time? This seems quite interesting. Emilan smiled and left. In a spacious study, she stood before a golden-haired man and said respectfully, "I, Saintess Emilan, greet your highness the crown prince." He replied, "Sit." She sat down, thinking he summoned me, but doesn't even bother with a proper greeting. Just because he's the crown prince, he acts as if he's above everyone else. Cassandra Wesley, the crown prince of the Wesley Empire, was currently sitting imposingly with his legs crossed and arms folded, frowning at her. I summoned you because I want to discuss a few things. Outwardly, Emilon replied calmly, "Please speak, your highness." Inwardly, she cursed, "What a waste of a handsome face." Cassandra, indifferent to her thoughts, continued, "You know the palace is about to hold a hunting competition, right? They said they need your help at the reception area later." Emilon thought to herself, "Who requested that?" Cassandra continued, "I expect you to participate. Nella would very much like you to be there." She recalled the image of Ronella smiling brightly beside him and guessed, "Is Nella a nickname for Princess Ronella Nesjo? The crown prince likes her too. I should find out a little more." With that thought, she asked, "Forgive me, but may I know the reason?" Cassandra said calmly, "Well, it's just my speculation, but the temple recently reported that the number of demons has suddenly increased. Since the venue for the competition is in a large forest, there's a possibility that demons will appear. Nella seems to want the Saintess to escort me for safety, using the reception area as an excuse." Emilon, expressionless, replied, "I understand." But inwardly, she was suspicious. Could it be that the person the princess truly likes is the crown prince? Enough to worry about him that much. She was just flirting with another guy, smiling so sweetly. What is she planning? Cassandra leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and said coldly, "I know you don't usually attend parties and events. Out of respect for Princess Ronella's wishes, will you consider participating?" He smiled gently at her. This surprised Emilon. This person, he can make that expression? In the end, she nodded and replied, "All right, I will participate with great gratitude." Cassandra rubbed his eyes, looking tired, and hastily dismissed her. "As that's all, you may leave now. I have an appointment with Nella soon." Emilon laughed to herself. An appointment with the crown prince, right after meeting the young master of a marquis family. But she still replied politely, "Yes, then I'll see you again." Emilon stepped outside, feeling a pang of regret. "It's a shame I can't watch the princess's harem from the sidelines." At that moment, someone interrupted her thoughts, asking tentatively, "Lady Emilon?" A young man with reddish-brown hair and eyes of the same color smiled sweetly. Emilon replied politely, "Lord Helio, it's been a while, hasn't it?" He looked at her and said, "This is the first time I've met you in the palace." Helio Rastoon, the sage of the Wesley Empire. She asked courteously, "It's a pleasure to meet you. Where are you headed?" Helio placed a hand on his neck, flustered. "Princess Nesjo has summoned me." She pondered, should I give him a little push? Acting on her thought, she said, "The princess, the crown prince, is also about to meet the princess. I wonder what's going on." Hearing this, Helio panicked, his face turning pale as he stammered, "What? I thought the princess only summoned me." Outwardly, she gave a reassuring smile. There must be a misunderstanding. But in her head, she thought, "Oh my, has he fallen for it? How pitiful." But this seems to make things clearer. The image of the beloved princess is just an act. That's wonderful. But a stage woven by feigning cuteness is much more interesting than genuine cuteness, isn't it? At the Saintess's residence, as the sky turned a pale yellow and sunset enveloped the castle. In magnificent splendor, Emilon sat on her bed, thinking to herself, the hunting competition, is the princess really worried about those guys, or is she plotting something? Suddenly, she squinted her eyes as a wave of dizziness hit her. Emilon fell onto the bed, speculating, this feeling, it's a vision of the future shown to me by the Lord. A prophecy. The clock struck 6 in the morning, sunlight streamed in, and she let out a sigh. Emilon gripped the bedsheet tightly, her mind in turmoil. It can't be. It's a demon. She frowned deeply, as if unable to believe that thing would appear at the hunting competition. Countless figures appeared below the fountain. They were all nobles, discussing recent events. One said, "They say 5 demons appeared at Count Saturn's mansion." Another asked, "Oh my, really? Are the Count and Countess all right?" The discussion continued animatedly, but Emilon only felt disgust. The old man with the white beard continued, Fortunately, they were on guard beforehand. They used bait taken from the slums, making it easier for the knights to hunt down the demons. Thanks to that, the Count's mansion suffered no losses. Emilon thought with hatred, but the people used as bait all died. The scraggly bearded old man replied with a gleeful laugh, "Of course. It both minimizes the damage caused by demons and reduces the number of useless people." The man standing next to him chimed in, "That was an excellent choice." She thought indignantly that she was in a world where such an act was considered excellent. Emilon stood to one side, listening to their conversation. They continued all thanks to the prophecy revealed by the saintess. She thought resentfully, why on earth did I end up in this place and become a saintess? Her head throbbed. Emilon sat on her bed and recalled, this is the second time since then that a prophecy has spoken of the appearance of demons. Legend has it that demons are beasts of chaos, no different from dangerous monsters to humans. Their only weakness is holy power. That is why the temple is tasked with exterminating them. Emilon pondered, the problem is that the prophecy doesn't provide enough information. It doesn't mention the level of the demons or the number that will appear. According to the classification of demon levels, low-level demons can be handled by a few ordinary knights, but mid or high-level ones require holy power to be destroyed. In other words, the risk of the hunt will increase greatly. She hesitated. Should I announce the prophecy and have the hunt canceled? No, if I do that, the nobles will use bait. I can't let that disaster happen again. This reason alone isn't enough to cancel the hunt. I guess I'll just wait and see. It's fortunate that I was invited to the hunt. At that moment, a knock came from the door. Emilon looked towards it and heard, Lady Emilon, it's Renee Ben. I have returned. She guessed it's time to eat, isn't it? As she politely called out, wait a moment. Emilon opened the door to her room. The man had white hair and unusually beautiful purple eyes. He looked at her and said reverently, greetings to the blessing of the Lord. It is Renee Ben, the high priest. Emilon smiled at him. Welcome back. I thought you would be late since you went out. Renee Ben explained, the temple permitted me to be out until dinner. I cannot disobey the order. She turned her back, looking towards him and praising him silently. It wasn't really an order, but he is very diligent. She asked him, shall we go to the dining room? Renee Ben complied, yes. The two of them walked to the dining room together. They walked without saying a word to each other. Renee Ben turned to look at her. Emilon noticed his gaze and turned back, asking, Lord Renee Ben, is something wrong? Caught. He seemed flustered and evasively replied, no. Emilon looked at him, asking casually, what was the reason you went out today? You seemed very anxious when you asked for my permission. Renee Ben broke into a sweat, avoiding her gaze like a child being punished. Finally, he awkwardly recounted, Princess Ronella summoned me. She suggested that I know that both I and the sage participate in the hunting competition. Emilon knew it, as expected, but she kept her expression normal. Oh, I'm glad it's nothing serious. I was worried because you looked very tense, Lord Renee Ben. He reacted just like someone in love, his eyes darting elsewhere, his hand clenched into a fist to cover his mouth as he explained, the princess had never summoned me before. I must have been tense without realizing it. She looked at him, laughing inwardly. She even won over the high priest? That's truly impressive, but she quickly hid her smile. Emilon replied, well, I will also be participating in that hunting competition. Renee Ben, hearing that, exclaimed in surprise, what? She thought curiously, who will be the last man to capture? The princess's heart? At the grand and magnificent temple, there was a surprise visitor today. Princess Ronella Nestjo arrived. Emilon was handling the ledgers when she looked at the handmaiden and asked, puzzled, the princess? What is she here for? Renee Ben stood nearby, listening. The handmaiden replied, yes, the princess has requested to see the saintess. Emilon pondered, a request to meet without prior notice? She happened to see Reneben's expectant and slightly nervous gaze. She had no choice but to see. Well, let's go and hear what she has to say. She said to the handmaiden, please escort her to the drawing room and prepare some tea. In the drawing room, Ronella was wearing a beautiful blue dress. She looked at her with grace and elegance. Greetings to the blessing of the Lord. Emilon sat opposite her and replied, it's been a while, Princess Nestjo. Renee Ben, like a fool, blushed and bowed his head. Ronella said weakly and shyly, I'm truly sorry for taking up your time with this visit. I came here because I have something important to tell the saintess. Emilon said coolly, is it a private matter? If so, Lord Renee Ben, please step outside for a moment. Hearing that, Ronella immediately blushed and said frantically, oh no. Ronella clasped her hands together, her sparkling eyes pleading coquettishly. This is a difficult matter to speak of, but I would feel more comfortable with Lord Renee Ben by my side. Please, stay here with us. Emilon glanced at her, showing no emotion. She smiled indifferently and simply replied, very well, please stay by the princess's side, Lord Renee Ben. He even kindly offered a handkerchief to Ronella here. She accepted it reverently. Thank you. Some frightening things have happened to me recently, so I keep crying like this. Ronella sobbed while wiping her tears. Recently, someone has started threatening me. Emilon raised an eyebrow, questioning, what do you mean? Ronella recounted, the day before yesterday, I went to Lady Soren's tea party, and the knights escorting me were found dead. She looked up, her brow furrowed as she guessed, a murder case. Ronella continued sadly, and lately, many strange things have been happening to me, like things disappearing or waking up in a different room. I've asked the servants, but it's been no use. Emilon looked at Ronella suspiciously. Is this an act, or is it real? She said tearfully, her voice choked with emotion. I'm being protected more carefully now, and my father is watching over me more, but the culprit still hasn't been caught. Saintess, Ronella called out, pleading with her, please help me. She rested her chin on her hand, contemplating. Just as I received a prophecy about demons appearing, the princess comes to tell me about these strange incidents. Emilon smiled agreeably and asked, all right, what can I do to help you? Ronella exclaimed in surprise. Really? Emilon replied cheerfully, I can help you for a few days. So, should I take responsibility for protecting the princess and investigating the culprit? Ronella said, oh, my father has already launched an investigation. It's fine. Just protection is enough. Emilon raised her teacup in agreement. Then I will go to the Duke's residence to protect the princess, and I will stay there starting tomorrow until the hunting competition takes place. Ronella said happily, thank you so much. Emilon turned to call Rene Ben. Priest Rene Ben, please escort the princess. He replied yes. Ronella followed Rene Ben out. As she was leaving, she flashed a triumphant smile. Emilon sized her up as well. Then she covered her mouth and laughed, thinking to herself, honestly, I'm really looking forward to seeing your acting skills. The next day, at the Nestro mansion, Ronella came out to welcome Emilon, saying with a happy laugh, thank you for coming. The Duke spoke up. Nayla, that's no way to greet the Saintess. And the Duchess smiled in greeting. I welcome the blessing of the Lord. These two were the Duke and Duchess Nestro. Hearing him, Ronella corrected herself. Oh, I welcome the blessing of the Lord. I'm sorry, I was too excited. Emilon responded to the Duke. May the Lord bless you. I didn't expect you both to come out to greet me. The Duke extended his hand and said, of course, you finally agreed to protect Nayla's safety. The Duchess said, please make yourself comfortable. Ronella, beside her, grabbed her arm and said, Saintess, please come inside. She gave a sinister laugh and said, while you are here, I will take very good care of you. Emilon, along with Ronella and two maids, entered the Nestro mansion. The gilded paintings were dazzling. Emilon exclaimed inwardly. As expected of Duke Nestro, there were even sculptures inside the mansion, which surprised her with its extravagance. The level of wealth was truly admirable. But Emilon glanced at the girl walking beside her. Ronella smiled and asked her, you look like you have something to say? Emilon replied, you seem like a different person. Yesterday, you looked so exhausted that I was very worried. Ronella smiled sweetly and brightly, replying, oh my, thank you for your concern. I feel better today because the Saintess is by my side. Emilon said politely, I'm glad you're feeling better. That was her outward expression, but she had already guessed lies. Yesterday's tears were also fake, but it wasn't clear how much of the story was a lie. Judging by the reactions of the Duke and Duchess, there was definitely something to be worried about regarding Ronella. In short, the princess was being threatened, but was also taking advantage of it. Ronella smiled brightly at her. Saintess, shall we go have a meal? Emilon thought to herself, I still have time to investigate. Her beautiful face gave a gentle assent. That sounds nice. The food served was also very thoughtful and high class. Emilon cut her steak, maintaining a smiling face as she thought. A delicious lunch with a scheming princess. Not bad. But perhaps because there are no men around the princess, it's not as fun as I thought. I guess I'll have to look forward to the next time when one of them is with her. Ronella put down her spoon, her face turning grim as she uttered, Saintess, why are you so proactive? Emilon's eyes widened, looking at her in surprise. That atmosphere just now. Ronella gave a perverse smile. She returned to normal again, saying sweetly, oh, does that sound strange? Don't misunderstand. I'm just curious. You are very different from the previous Saintesses. Emilon thought to herself, I've heard that a lot. When I first came to this world, I was treated very well as the Saintess. However, the way the temple treated itself was very poor. The people of the temple are very kind because of their innate holy power. In other words, they are extremely benevolent. Even if someone unfairly takes their share, they will accept it and let it go. The daily life of the priests was nothing but fasting and poverty. So, unlike the previous Saintesses, I have worked steadily to improve the temple system. Emilon replied matter-of-factly, this is something I have answered many times in meetings. I thought it was quite well known, But you still haven't heard? Ranella replied, I know you mentioned the difficulty of maintaining the temple. And the reason the saintess was chosen from outsiders is because the Lord gave a warning about the temple's hopeless future, right? She admitted, yes, that's right. Ranella reached out her hand and continued. But the temple has become rich now, hasn't it? However, it seems there's still something. She placed her hand on her lips, contemplating. Something is lacking in you, saintess. Emilon didn't answer. She let out a breath and replied delicately, That's right, it's true that I still have some shortcomings. But if I continue to work hard, won't it eventually disappear? Emilon said gently, holding a wine glass in her hand. Ranella propped her hands on the table. She stood up without a word, and the day had come. The hunting competition had begun. Emilon, dressed in an elegant outfit, gently stroked her hair and wondered, Is today the last day of protecting the princess? Renee Ben stood before her and replied, Thank you for your hard work, saintess. Emilon frowned and looked around. Well, I haven't seen anyone suspicious. What about the Duke's investigation? Renee Ben reported, I haven't heard anything yet, but based on the atmosphere, it seems there hasn't been much progress. Emilon prioritized her speculation. Above all, the murder case must be investigated. Seeing Ronella's reaction, I don't feel comfortable letting this go. Because she's always smiling like a flower, it seems everything is fine because the saintess is by her side. Emilon continued, After this, I should at least send a priest to assist with the investigation. At that moment, other noble ladies were looking in one direction, and one lady spoke up. Oh, over there. Following her hand, the royal escort carriage was slowly coming to a stop. The person stepping out of the carriage was none other than Crown Prince Casidra, the son of the empire. His handsome face was cold, devoid of emotion. Even so, the noble young ladies were head over heels, praising him silently. Oh, the crown prince. He's as charming as ever. He's so handsome. Only Emilon was indifferent. As expected, that's the crown prince's carriage. And surprisingly, at that moment, a girl stepped down from the crown prince's carriage. It was Ranella. She was lovely, smiling gently as she placed her hand on the crown prince's and gracefully stepped down. This surprised the other girls, and a lively discussion broke out. Oh, isn't that Princess Nestro? She shared a carriage with the crown prince. Are the rumors true? And at this moment, Emilon switched to gossip mode and watched with amusement. But then, she quickly noticed another carriage, that carriage. Ranella, standing next to Casidra, noticed it too. She immediately ran to the other man, leaving the crown prince behind. Thank heavens you've arrived. And the person who stepped down was Inisus. He had handsome, light pink hair, with his eyes matching the same tone. He looked down at Ranella. And as Emilon predicted, Duke Inisus Cassian. He's Princess Nestro's childhood friend, isn't he? It was clear in his eyes that he had fallen for the princess. Emilon glanced over to where Helio was standing, guessing to herself, and with the sage over there. 4 of the princess's men have gathered here today. I shouldn't get distracted, but observing them will be very interesting. While she was thinking, Ranella approached, looked at her, and called out, Lady Emilon, there you are. And upon hearing that name, everyone around was surprised, but not in a friendly way. They began to whisper among themselves. Did she say Emilon? Wait, a nun with pink hair? Is she the saintess? I thought she had withdrawn from society. It seems she's become close with Princess Nestro. Outwardly, Emilon smiled brightly in greeting, while thinking to herself, the princess really knows how to draw attention. Inisus then approached Ranella and said succinctly, Nayla, the handkerchief. She smiled brightly, took out a handkerchief, and gave it to him. Yes, I brought one for you. In the Empire, there's a tradition where the family or lover of a knight gives them a handkerchief as a gift when they go to battle. Giving a handkerchief means they have guided the god of victory to the knight's side. Ranella brightly showed off the handkerchief in front of him. I embroidered it with the purple thread you like. Do you like it? Inisus blushed, looked at her, and held out his hand, saying, Tie it for me. Ranella, ignoring the distance between men and women or tradition, smiled and tied it onto his hand, casually saying, You always ask me to tie it around your wrist, Inisus. He looked at her shyly and replied, That way I won't lose it. And how wonderful. Emilon laughed to herself as she looked towards Casidra. There was also a handkerchief tied to the crown prince's sword. Casidra frowned, stepped forward, grabbed Ronella's shoulder, and pulled her away from Inisus, saying coldly, Duke Cassian, it's time. Let's go. He looked at him with annoyance, but replied, Understood, Your Highness. Ranella returned to her side, waving and cheering. Good luck, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Inisus, don't push yourself too hard. Emilon just said quietly, I hope you both return safely. Casidra smiled, took off his cloak, looked towards them, and replied, "We will." Inesis politely thanked her for the well wishes. Afterwards, Ronella sat and chatted with another noble lady, complimenting her. "Wow, what a beautiful brooch." The other girl said happily, "Oh, thank you. My father has a new business deal with the Baiman Kingdom, so they sent this to us." Emilon didn't join in. She just stood to the side and watched. And suddenly, a piercing scream rang out. She quickly turned her head. A guard ran over, fell to his knees, and called out to her while panting. "Saintus." Emilon knelt down and told him, "Catch your breath. Speak calmly." The guard trembled and stammered. "His Highness has been attacked." Emilon was so shocked she froze. The scene of a dying Cassidra lying motionless in a pool of blood flashed in her mind. And it was even more terrifying when she heard his next words, that Cassidra had been attacked by a demon. Emilon was shocked. A demon? Did he say His Highness? She became serious. Our goal was to not let anyone get hurt. The knight replied apologetically, "I'm sorry, the signal flare wouldn't light." Emilon frowned and said, "I don't blame you." She mentally took stock. "When I first checked, I didn't find any traces, but now one of them has appeared." He, trembling with fear, reported the situation. "The demon seems to be at least a mid-tier type. Those who could fight have engaged, but are all injured." Emilon said in a cold voice, "I know the location. I will send aid immediately." Suddenly, Helio from behind came forward and shouted, "Hey, wait a minute." He called out, "Princess." Ronella ran quickly towards the forest. She was bewildered. "Princess Nesho." Emilon immediately dropped her hand with a click of her tongue. She frowned and coldly ran after her. The knight behind called out, "Saintus." As Emilon ran, she thought, the princess wouldn't run off without thinking. So perhaps she believes I can handle this. I don't know. There must be a calculated motive. At a certain point, she suddenly stopped and covered her nose. "Ugh, this is," Emilon affirmed, "the smell of blood." At the same time, she accidentally made a sound. Cassidra, clutching his wound and panting, she said with a sob, "Your Highness, hold on a little longer. The Saintus is coming soon, and the demon will be dealt with shortly." He chuckled softly and replied, "You're the only one who would look for me in this situation." Ronella sobbed and said, "If I don't go, who will?" His Highness Cassidra calmly reassured her. "This can be resolved, so don't cry." She stepped out, astonished. Thank God he can still talk, so this situation isn't the worst. The moment Emilon moved, he immediately sensed her. As swift as a flash, Cassidra threw a dagger that grazed her face. "Ronella." She turned around and looked in surprise. "Ah, Saintus." He was astonished. Emilon wiped away the blood and exclaimed, "That hurts." Cassidra looked on, startled. Ronella looked at her expectantly, pleading, "Saintus, please, please heal the crown prince." Emilon approached and replied, "All right." She channeled energy into his wound, thinking to herself, "It's a good thing he hasn't fainted yet." Emilon frowned and observed, "The healing is very slow," which means... She asked Emilon worriedly, "You why? Why isn't the healing finished yet?" Emilon answered seriously, "It's because of the demon's poison. It's preventing the wound from fully healing. I've administered first aid, but we need to extract the poison as soon as possible. Let's hurry back to the camp to use the proper tools." Her eyes widened. Emilon looked on in alarm. A demon. Ronella looked at Cassidra in fear and called out, "Your Highness." He shielded her, holding his sword and shouting, "Ronella, get back." The scarf flew onto Cassidra. She said calmly, "You should also get back, Your Highness." He was stunned. Emilon glanced back and said sternly, "I will protect you." Cassidra was surprised and did not reply. Slime oozed from the demon. She guessed. Was the crown prince injured by this acid-like poison? The aura spread out. Emilon looked at it and analyzed. This demon has many wounds from fighting the knights. It's tired. Its speed is also slow. This is the first time I'm facing a demon that isn't low level, so I'm a bit nervous. She smiled at her gloved hands and assessed. But now I think I can handle it. Suddenly, it turned towards Emilon. The demon spat poison right near her. The liquid splattered everywhere. Emilon frowned and thought, I can't dodge a single blow from it. A large pool of poison from the demon's tentacle. She let out a silent sigh of relief. I was lucky to have just dodged it. If these tentacles had attacked from all sides, it would have been over. Emilon stared intently at a spot on its body, mentally calculating. I have to aim for its fatal wound. Good, I'll aim for that spot. Now, while the demon is still trying to figure out its target, a tentacle is lurking by his side. She began to cast a spell, determined. Only one chance. Emilon moved forward and struck the weak point directly. The demon exploded, splattering blood all over her. Cassidra asked in astonishment, Is it dead? Emilon approached, kicked it, and replied, Yes, it's dead. She turned back and said calmly, I was worried the smell of blood would draw its attention to you, but luckily that didn't push the demon any further. Emilon, covered in its blood, held out her hand and said calmly, All right, get up. He looked at her outstretched hand with a complicated expression and didn't respond. Ranella eagerly came closer, wanting to help, and said hurriedly, I'll help you. Seeing this, Emilon looked back at her own hand and suddenly realized, there's demon blood on my hand. Cassidra quickly took her hand to stand up coldly, saying, Let's go. Emilon looked at his hand holding hers and stammered in reply, okay. She thought to herself, how strange. The crown prince should be shedding tears for the princess. She clutched Cassidra's sleeve, tears falling endlessly. Emilon was confused. Why does he just let her be like that? As they walked, a cough was heard from behind. Cough, cough. She paused. Emilon felt a pang of loss in her heart, just now remembering there were still others who fought alongside the crown prince. She then called out seriously, Your Highness. He didn't answer. Emilon stopped and called again, Your Highness. Cassidra came to his senses, turned back and replied, What is it? She turned away, put her gloves back on, and replied, There are injured people over there. Ranella suddenly peeked out and said, Wait a minute, Saintus. You should treat the crown prince first. Emilon thought with a serious face, then replied, According to the values of this world, that's right, but you two should head back to the camp first. Another priest will handle the detoxification treatment. He said in surprise, I thought you. Ranella said cheerfully to Cassidra, Let's hurry back, Your Highness. She blushed and looked at him with pity. Seeing you injured hurts me. You don't want me to be in pain, right? Emilon looked away to change the subject, not knowing whether to cry or be sad, thinking, wonderful, even in a situation like this. A knight called for help. Ugh, is anyone there? She turned and walked away, leaving a sentence behind. Please hurry back. Cassidra said nothing, glancing at Emilon's retreating back. As she walked further away, thanks to the many priests there, the situation was quickly brought under control, and luckily, there were no fatalities. She wanted to withdraw in a daze. Now all that was left was to detoxify the demon's poison from the crown prince for a full recovery, but Inesis shouted angrily, Ninla, do you realize what you've done? Ranella, she retorted, What? Why are you angry with me now? The two of them glared at each other. Emilon, with a normal expression, looked at them screaming with a forced smile. How did things turn out like this? Rewind. Earlier, everyone was gathered in Cassidra's room. Emilon reported the situation. The detoxification process is complete and your wound has been treated. She looked at him seriously and explained, You may still feel a lingering pain from the poison, but if you recover, the pain will disappear. Ranella asked worriedly, But can't the Saintus' holy power remove the remaining poison? Emilon calmly replied, It's possible, but it would be extremely painful. She said matter-of-factly, As a Saintus, I cannot render the crown prince unconscious. Cassidra, leaning on the bed, replied, Then that's fine. Emilon smiled lightly and suggested, May I suggest another method? I think it would be beneficial for you to visit the holy temple for a while. Sitting down here to heal will help you recover faster. He looked at her without answering. Emilon thought grimly, It's understandable. The royal family doesn't like to be indebted to the holy temple. She was again bewildered. You always seem so strong, so I thought you could decide for yourself, but Cassidra replied nonchalantly, That would be fine. Emilon asked in disbelief, Really? He answered without a hint of panic, Yes. Is there a problem? She pretended to be calm and replied, then changed the subject, No, ma'am. So, would the princess like to help? Ranella, her name having been mentioned, said, Emilon smiled and said, We need someone to take care of him during his recovery. You were the one who cared for him the most today, so I think this job is most suitable for you. She replied excitedly, If that's the case, then of course I'll do it. What could be more honorable than taking care of His Highness the Crown Prince while he recuperates? Ranella smiled brightly and went to Cassidra's side to comfort him. You'll recover in no time. He said indifferently, Thank you. She breathed a sigh of relief. You should be thanking the Saintus. All I can do is keep His Highness calm by being by his side. Emilon was touched and thought, even though she's acting, she says everything she wants. To say, Emilon lowered her eyes and thought more deeply. Is the princess trying to protect her position next to the crown prince? But the crown prince is the future emperor. If she marries someone like that, she can forget about having a harem like she does now. Perhaps she's planning to enjoy it until she gets married. It will be a bit disappointing when that time comes. He ran in from outside and called out loudly, Ninla. Ranella covered her mouth in confusion. Inesis. He asked again, Do you realize what you've done? She was confused. What? Inesis said angrily, running into a forest full of demons alone without any preparation. You could have been seriously injured. Ronella frowned and replied, "Are you angry with me? How could I stand by while His Highness was in danger?" He asked, puzzled. Saving people is the job of a priest, so why did you interfere? She turned and hugged Emelon's arm, arguing, "Because I knew the Saintess would come immediately." She thought in confusion, how did things turn out like this? Emelon cleared her throat and said, "Duke Cashin, His Highness is currently resting." He bowed. "I apologize for my disrespectful behavior, Your Highness." Cassidra crossed his arms and said calmly, "It's all right. I was also surprised when Ninla appeared." She looked at Ronella and silently judged. Actually, by the standards here, the princess's actions weren't entirely wrong. She risked her life, putting aside her fear of demons to save the crown prince. Emelon was surprised, but for Duke Cashin to be so angry. He turned pale when he heard the news, which means he was very worried for the princess's safety. She drew a conclusion, and perhaps he's jealous because it was the crown prince. Do those guys over there look really tense too? The two of them looked on with resentful, scowling faces. A knight came in to report, "Saintess, the royal guard has arrived." Emelon turned and replied, "Thank you." She withdrew her hand and said softly, "Princess, please take good care of the crown prince." Ronella hurriedly said, "Wait." She looked at Emelon with a friendly expression and said, "If it's not too much trouble, I'd like to return with today's savior, my Saintess." She was confused. "With me?" Emelon's heart screamed. "Why not spend time with the crown prince?" She turned to look at him. Cassidra turned away and said, "Just do as Ninla wishes." Emelon was internally surprised. "Really?" Outwardly, she acted as if nothing was wrong and replied, "Yes, ma'am." She said cheerfully, "I'm so happy." On the way, Ronella said with emotion, "Saintess, you've worked hard today. Your holy power is truly astonishing." She replied naturally, "Saving people is what's important. So this little effort is nothing." In the carriage, Ronella said gloomily, "Actually, Inesis was right. I knew I would die if I went alone." Ronella poked her fingers together. "I clung to a sliver of hope and prayed, and then you really appeared. For a moment, you looked like an angel." Emelon said calmly, "It's my duty to work like that." She smiled, covering her mouth, and replied, "I was too flustered earlier to thank you properly, Emelon. I'm deeply grateful for your immense kindness. If you ever need help from my ducal house, don't hesitate to let me know." Emelon smiled lightly and replied, "Thank you." She looked at Ronella with a complicated expression. How grand, that was quite a polished act. If the princess hadn't shown such hostility towards me on the first day I arrived at the ducal house, I might have bought into this profound gratitude that she is very naive. Ronella sighed and said, "Come to think of it, our reception will be canceled. This is not the time for a party, but it's still such a shame." Emelon replied calmly, "I heard you had prepared for the party. It's understandable that you're disappointed." She sighed sadly. "That's right, especially since my brother was planning to attend. I was really looking forward to it." Emelon was astonished. "Brother." She recalled, "Brother, in other words, the heir of the Nestro family. The only thing I've heard about him is that he's currently studying abroad." Ronella said excitedly, "He's finally finished his studies abroad and is coming back. Would it be all right to invite you to meet him when he gets here?" Emelon was bewildered. "What?" She smiled brightly, resting her face on her hand, and said, "We're preparing a simple family meal. If you could join us, it would be such a wonderful day, so much so that it would make me forget all about my disappointment over the canceled party." Emelon thought to herself, "I've already cleared my schedule for the party, so it's fine." She replied seriously, "I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to attend a family event." Ronella laughed. "It's fine. Inesis and I were planning to welcome my brother back together." At that point, her eyes suddenly drooped sadly, and she said, "But you see, Inesis and I just had a fight after what happened today. I'm not sure if he'll come." Emelon looked at Ronella from a distance and thought, if Duke Cashin is as infatuated with the princess as usual, he'll probably come just to make up, if so. She smiled lightly and replied, "Thank you for your invitation, but could the high priest who helps me, Rene Ben, come along?" Ronella replied joyfully, "Of course, it would be even better if you both came." Emelon smiled, both outwardly and inwardly, thinking, today the princess focused so much on the crown prince and Duke Cashin that Rene Ben seemed quite sad. It would be interesting if he used this family dinner opportunity to score some points with the princess. Ronella rested her chin on her hand and asked her casually, "Oh, by the way, did you know my brother is a mage?" Suddenly, there was a loud noise outside the carriage. The carriage lost control and crashed straight into a tree. She screamed. Ah! A man with a powerful aura approached. Emilon frowned, rubbing her head in confusion, thinking, why did the carriage suddenly, while Ronella was being shielded in her arms, covering her face? He approached the carriage. Emilon was startled. Did you just attack us? Varen grabbed the carriage door frame with a grunt. Ah, he looked coldly. So it turns out you were here. She thought hazily, who is this? Who would dare attack the Holy Temple's carriage? Like this? Varen's mouth moved, but he glared coldly and wondered, why is the Saintess here? Emilon shielded Ronella behind her and replied, this is the Holy Temple's carriage, so obviously the Saintess would be inside. Is that a sufficient answer? Now it's my turn to ask. Who are you? She thought, I have a feeling I've met this person before. He looks very familiar. Emilon, still protecting her from behind, asked, are you the one who attacked the carriage? He replied, ah. Just then, Ronella peeked out and called. She exclaimed in surprise, oh brother, why are you here? Emilon wondered, brother? So this person is. At that moment, Varen had already stepped forward. She continued to think the heir of Nestor. Varen answered Ronella, my schedule finished earlier than expected. She thought in amazement. Magic. He lifted us up and fixed the carriage at the same time. Mages are as rare as priests. His skills are extraordinary. She happily ran towards him, calling out loudly, brother. Emilon turned her face away and thought, can I relax now? The driver and the horse seemed to be unharmed. Ah, he looks familiar because he resembles the Duke and Duchess. Varen lifted Ronella high up. She pondered, this is a bit surprising. I didn't expect the princess to be so close to her brother. Varen and Ronella looked at each other and smiled. It looked very strange. Emilon was surprised. She thought, they're smiling, but it's so forced. It looks like they're acting. What's going on with the Nestor family? Emilon pouted. She asked in surprise, by the way, why did you attack the carriage? He looked towards her and answered. There was a disgusting scent like a demon's. Emilon placed a hand on her chest, hurt, and thought, I know I'm covered in demon blood, but isn't that a bit much? She patiently replied, I am Saintess Emilon. Under these circumstances, I am not in a good mood. Varen bowed respectfully and introduced himself. I am Varen Nestor. Forgive my rudeness. Emilon thought. You apologize with a handsome face, but without a shred of sincerity. She extended her hand towards him and said, you know, the white carriage indicates it's from the Holy Temple. It's best to assess the situation and react appropriately to avoid situations like this. In the future, Varen bowed his head, feigning a reply. I will take your words to heart, Saintess. Ronella, standing beside him, also added, I apologize as well, Saintess. Emilon thought silently. On the outside, they look like close siblings, but their expressions show the opposite. I guess siblings don't always get along with each other. She crossed her arms and said, Saintess Emilon, I'm sorry, but I should go home with my brother now. May I visit the Holy Temple another time? Emilon smiled and replied, of course. Enjoy the time with your family. Back home, she soaked in the bathtub, letting out a comfortable sound. Emilon touched the wound on her face and thought. The wound from the Crown Prince's dagger still stings. Being a Saintess can be very disadvantageous in times like these. A Saintess possesses infinite holy power, but cannot use it to heal herself. Instead, her overall physical energy and natural recovery speed are significantly enhanced. She will not die from any fatal wound unless it is fated. She is truly blessed by God. Emilon looked down at her arm, stained with demon blood, and thought, I still feel the ache, so it's not really a blessing for me. Speaking of which, Varen Nestor said he could smell the scent of a demon, right? Can someone without holy power really sense the presence of a demon so clearly? Anyway, I hope what happened today won't happen again. She washed off the bloodstain. Emilon thought of Cassidra. In the end, I didn't even get a thank you from the Crown Prince. He even kept the scarf I like with him. Well, even so, she raised her hand, happily thinking, today I killed a mid-tier demon with my own hands and saved people. It was disgusting, dirty, hateful, and terrible, but I did it, so it's not too bad. She soaked happily. When Emilon finished her bath, Renee Ben, who had been waiting outside, stood up abruptly and called, Saintess. As she dried her hair, she thought, oh right, I told him to wait for me in here. Emilon said, sorry to keep you waiting. She handed him a book and said, please deliver this to the palace. Renee Ben asked, what is this? Emilon replied, information about the demon that attacked the Crown Prince. Since the Emperor will want to know, I thought I should send it ahead. He nodded, oh okay. She continued, that's all I need. You can go rest now. Renee Ben stammered. Saintess, there's a message from the palace. Emilon was skeptical. What is it? He averted his eyes. Instead of a party to celebrate the hunting festival, they want to hold a party to honor you. She asked again, a party? Renee Ben continued. The emperor wants to express his gratitude to you for saving the crown prince. Of course, the crown prince will not attend as he needs to rest. Emilon pondered. He closed his eyes worriedly and said, if you don't want to attend, Lady Emilon. She cut him off and said, no, tell them I will attend. Emilon thought, they say this party is for me, but it's at the palace. If the princess comes, the guys in her harem will be there too. She picked up a cake. Emilon continued with her train of thought. I'll just go as a spectator and enjoy myself. This is delicious. She put the piece of cake in her mouth. Suddenly someone knocked on the door. Emilon was surprised and then said, come in. The person who entered was Dian, the manager of the Holy Temple. She said, Saintess, it's time to get ready. She replied calmly, that's a bit too early. Usually, we only prepare an hour beforehand. The party starts in the evening. Dian exclaimed in shock, what are you saying? Taking a bath, doing your hair, changing clothes, and putting on makeup, even if we start now. I'm afraid we still won't have enough time. The maids behind her all agreed in unison. She pushed Emilon, urging, come on, hurry up. She complained, this is too complicated. Emilon looked towards Dian, who was assigning tasks, musing, come to think of it, Dian has changed a lot. At first, she wouldn't even look at me, let alone speak to me properly. She smiled and thought, I finally feel like I belong here. Sunset at the Holy Temple. Renee Ben was standing by the window. He just looked down in silence. Suddenly someone called, Renee Ben. He was startled, turned around, and answered, yes. Renee Ben blushed in astonishment. Emilon looked Renee Ben over and offered a compliment. You look very handsome today. Receiving her compliment, Renee Ben couldn't help but feel shy. He politely replied, you are much more beautiful than I am, Saintess. Any girl would be happy to be called pretty. After being praised, Emilon looked quite cheerful. Oh my, thank you. Seeing her so happy, Renee Ben didn't know what to do, just stammered, come, let me escort you. Then Emilon took Reneben's arm, and they entered the party together. They chattered away as they walked. She said, come to think of it, you always attend parties on my behalf, don't you? I'm very grateful for that. Reneben just humbly replied, it is the duty of the high priest to assist. The saintess, after walking a bit, he turned to ask her, so, by the way, are you sure you're okay? Hearing him ask that, she was a little surprised. Huh? Seeing her reaction, Reneben began to explain, I noticed you've been avoiding parties since the last National Foundation Day festival. I thought you might feel troubled because of what happened then. Reneben continued. After he finished speaking, she felt quite surprised to see how much attention he paid to her. Emilon was secretly pleased. Reneben, you care about me more than I thought. I thought you only focused on every princess. Well, that's to be expected, since you're a kind and dedicated priest. Breaking out of her thoughts, she turned to tell him, it seems I made you worry. I'm fine now. Hearing her say that, he also felt somewhat relieved. If that's the case, then that's good. Emilon wanted him to pay more attention to himself, so she suggested, don't worry about me today. Focus on yourself, Sir Reneben. The words that came out of her mouth couldn't help but startle him. Startled. She gave a bright smile, looking at him with friendly eyes. I mean to say I'm excited about this party. After their conversation, Emilon suddenly realized a few things. Talking to Reneben made me realize I'm quite inconsistent. I used to be tired of these high society social events. Noticing that the important figures had arrived, the announcer's voice announced, High Priest Reneben and Saintess Emilon have arrived. A thought began to form in her head. I never thought I would attend an event like this again. The arrival of him and her caused a stir throughout the party. Everyone looked towards the two of them, whispering amongst themselves. The two of them ignored the loud and soft whispers around them and just strode down the red carpet into the party. But strangely, as the two of them entered, the space became unusually quiet. Seeing the atmosphere suddenly quiet down, suspicion arose in her heart. They immediately stopped talking when we entered. Is everyone here talking about the Holy Temple? When I became a saintess, some nobles began to look down on the Holy Temple. I only asked for fair supplies because I didn't want to see the Holy Temple exploited. She thought to herself, and here is a diagram of the fairness of class in the Holy Temple. Taxes, supervision of the royal family, nobles, the Holy Temple. Protecting the Holy Temple's budget. Then she began to analyze, but the nobles think the Holy Temple is taking away money that should have gone into their pockets. So they only praise the Holy Temple when they need healing, or when demons threaten the safety of society. Only when it benefits them, she thought, feeling disgusted with those people. If the holy temple disappeared, it would be a great loss for them, but they are still so shameless. Thinking this, she stopped and turned to look at him. I want to find a place to sit. Hearing this, Renee Ben immediately replied, okay, I'll lead you there. High-ranking nobles usually arrive last. I had intended for us to arrive at the end, but the new route here was faster than I thought. He gently informed her. Hearing this, Emilon suddenly realized, no wonder I felt we arrived faster than last time. Emilon sat down wearily on the chair, letting out a long sigh. So we could have rested for another hour and still arrived on time. She began to recall the matter. We were just carrying out our duties. Hearing her say that, he could only give a wry smile. Ha ha! Hearing a sound behind her, Emilon turned her head to look. Entering through the door were Ronella from the Nestro family and Inesis from the Cashin family. Emilon looked towards the group of people, listening to them say to each other, the princess is as beautiful and charming as ever. Duke Cashin is also quite handsome, isn't he? Hearing those words, she couldn't help but feel heartbroken to see that their attitude when those two arrived was completely different from their attitude when he and she entered. A completely different reaction from when we arrived. Suddenly at this moment, a voice came from in front of her. Hello, Saintess. The young man who had just greeted her lowered himself, placed his hand on his chest to show respect, and slowly introduced himself to her. My name is Ingina Mozio. It is a great honor to meet you. After hearing his introduction, Renee Ben felt quite uncomfortable. I can feel the disrespect in his greeting. Emilon turned curiously and whispered in his ear, who is that? He also bent down and brought his mouth close to her ear, answering in a low voice, the second son of Count Mozio. After learning his identity, she replied to his earlier greeting, oh, hello. Seeing that she didn't seem to recognize him, Ingina brought up the past, his mood slightly disappointed. Ha, I participated in the hunting festival, but it seems you don't remember. Suddenly finding herself in an awkward position, Emilon just gave a friendly smile and gently explained, oh, sorry for not noticing. I was too busy handling work. He didn't blame her and even found a way to make her feel less awkward. It must have been chaotic then. Even our knights received help from the Saintess. Thank you for extending a merciful hand to someone as lowly as me. After hearing him speak, Emilon gave a slight smile. She observed his handsome face for a while. His smile is truly sinister. Emilon thought to herself, that long, judgmental, and short-sighted smile. Sometimes people approach me with deep intentions. Like this, after a while of getting acquainted, Ingina extended his hand, offering to dance with her. If you're all right with it, please dance with me. He thought she would be moved and agree, but unexpectedly, she pulled her hand back, refusing firmly. No. But it was a pleasure to meet you. I hope you have a wonderful time. She placed her hand on his shoulder, patting it firmly, as if to encourage him. Then she turned and walked over to where Renee Ben was standing. Shall we take a walk, Renee Ben? He replied politely, yes. Abandoned like a toy, Ingina was frozen to the spot, unable to utter a word, only managing to mumble. Oh, not accepting defeat, he immediately ran towards her. Wait, just as he was about to try and persuade her, a voice stopped him in his tracks. Oh, Saintess, Ronella and Inesis said in unison, greetings and God's blessings. Meanwhile, he stood to one side, dumbfounded and speechless. Seeing the two of them, Emilon's mood immediately brightened. She offered a greeting, may God bless you. You had a good time with your family, didn't you, princess? Ronella replied to her greeting cheerfully, yes, thanks to you. You must be exhausted from dealing with the demons, right, Saintess? Did you get good rest? In contrast to her cheerful mood, Inesis wore a scowl as he stared intently at Ingina. Being stared at with such daggers made him extremely frightened, and his body trembled. Outside, two girls were whispering and gossiping about them. At that moment, a girl stepped in, interrupting their conversation. Excuse me. Then, from out of nowhere, a crowd of people rushed to where they were standing, each one of them relentlessly asking questions without giving them a chance to answer. Greetings and God's blessings. Are you well, Duke Cashin? It's been a while, High Priest. How is Duke Nestro? Seeing everyone chattering like that, she thought sadly when it was just me and Renee Ben, everyone avoided us. Renee Ben also felt a bit bothered and tried to find a way to escape. Let's hurry somewhere else. Both are girls, equally beautiful, with similar statuses, yet Ronella is more liked than her. But when the princess arrived, they flocked over as if it were a grand event. How two-faced. Inesis now looked quite hesitant, as if he wanted to say something to her. Finally, he gathered all his courage to speak. Saintis, at the hunting competition, I was unable to thank you properly due to my shortcomings, he continued. Inesis bowed 60 degrees, showing his reverence. Thank you for saving Nayla. Emilon didn't say much, just one sentence. It was nothing. She stared at the person bowing before her and couldn't help but feel troubled. Duke Cashin doesn't seem to hold any hostility towards the Holy Temple. Or perhaps it's because he's standing before the person who saved the one he loves. But why? A question suddenly arose in her mind. He looks like someone facing a love rival. She probably had this thought because of his grumpy face right now, thanking someone but looking like he's here to collect a debt. Ronella, realizing she had been overlooked, rushed forward to chide him. Hey, why are you thanking her for me? After some reflection, Emilon thought to herself, no, I'm mistaken, it must be my imagination. While they were talking enthusiastically, she suddenly sensed something unusual. Emilon looked around. Where's that sound coming from? A wave of anxiety washed over her. Her face suddenly changed color. What is this feeling of unease? She looked up at the ceiling. It turned out the sound was coming from there. It was the chandelier. At that very moment, the chain holding the chandelier snapped. Seeing the imminent danger, Inesis ran quickly to Ronella, wrapping his arms around her entire body to ensure her safety. Nayla, as for her, she hurriedly pushed him away and stepped back, seeing the chandelier about to fall on her. Renee Ben was in a state of utter panic, screaming her name. Lady Emilon, crash! Her vision suddenly went dark. Drip by drip, blood slowly fell to the floor. Emilon clutched her injured arm as she watched the chandelier fall from the ceiling. Renee Ben asked worriedly, Lady Emilon, are you all right? With a calm expression, she pulled a stone shard embedded in her arm out, while letting out a small cry, ugh. She turned her head to answer Renee Ben. I'm not seriously injured, Sir Renee Ben. Suddenly, Renee Ben's eyes widened. She knelt, covering her mouth with her hand, looking very tired. Renee Ben cried out in worry, Lady Emilon. She replied, I'm fine. Could you please check the chandelier? He said urgently, we should treat your wound first. She sent him off. Go check if there's anything strange. There. He hesitated for a moment, then replied, all right, I'll be right back. Emilon replied, I'm counting on you. Outside, there were loud and soft whispers. Ah, blood. The party guests said in fear. There's blood. Oh my. One of them, holding a lady who was injured in the accident, cried out, can't you bring someone to help? Emilon clicked her tongue and thought. The diamond fragments of the chandelier scattered everywhere. Helion, rubbing his sore hand, cried out, ah. Emilon caught this and thought, is he injured too? Then she approached Helion and said, greetings, sir. Excuse me for a moment. Helion said urgently, ah, Saintis. Emilon immediately took Helion's hand and used magic to heal it. Helion let out a surprised, ah, after seeing his hand was completely healed without a single scratch. The people around, seeing this, rushed over to beg, please heal me too. My daughter is hurt. Saintis, please grant us your grace. Soon a long line of people had formed in front of Helion. Emilon thought there are very few injured people, but all of them have minor scrapes. She wondered, should I give it a try? Then she reassured everyone, please calm down. Then she held out her hand and cast a wide area spell. A magic seal formed on her hand and released its power outward. The wounds of everyone around began to heal quickly. They let out surprised HS at this miracle. Emilon thought, this matter is settled. Then she asked the Duke beside her, are you all right, Duke Cashin? He was startled and then replied, ah yes. She was thinking. The two of them were in a safe place from the beginning. Then Renee Ben ran over, calling her, Lady Emilon. He said, I noticed something unusual about the cut on the chandelier's chain. It looks like it was intentionally severed. Emilon began to think, if no cutting tool is found, then it was probably magic. Moreover, demon poison was found on many of the crystal fragments. As expected, the dizzy spell from before wasn't just from blood loss. Normal poison can't harm me, but demon poison can. She exclaimed, how strange. She analyzed for Renee Ben. If a normal person is poisoned, the wound will spread quickly like the crown princes at the hunting competition. But the injured people here show no signs of demon poisoning at all. He replied, I don't understand either. The whispers started to get louder, demon poison, but the Saintess has already healed us, so it's fine, right? Emilon clapped her hands to stop the whispering. Said, silence. She continued. The chandelier fell, and it happened right above my head. I'm sure everyone knows this was not a coincidence. Do you think the saintess is a joke?" She glared and questioned. "Or do you look down on the holy temple that much?" The nobles who were just talking fell silent. Emilon said decisively, "In the name of Saintess Emilon, I declare the holy temple will cease all demon hunts, effective immediately." The people around immediately questioned, "The holy temple is stopping demon hunts? How ridiculous! Are you telling us to use our own resources to fight demons?" One of them spoke up, "Please calm down, Saintess." Emilon turned her head. She thought, Marquis Mother, a central figure of the royalist noble faction. He was the one who told the count to use people from the slums as bait when he heard the prophecy that a demon would appear in Saturn. Mother continued, "The falling chandelier seems to have startled you, which is understandable. It's hard for anyone to remain calm in this situation. So, why not calm down and reconsider your declaration? Joking about stopping the demon hunts, the fundamental duty of the Holy Temple, is going a bit too far." Emilon replied, "Thank you for your consideration, Marquis Mother. However, you are the one who is joking." The man laughed, asking, "What do you mean?" Emilon said, "The master of the Holy Temple is I, the Saintess. I am the one who hears the words of God and brings peace and prosperity to the empire." The remaining nobles whispered, "For our benefit? What does that mean?" She continued, "I am loved by God, and the way you treat me will surely incur his wrath, but I do not wish for him to punish you directly." She thought, "God, you who sent me here, will not punish anyone, and they don't care how I use their power." After thinking, she said, "That is why I will be the one to punish you." Isn't halting the demon hunts a lighter punishment than divine retribution? The man asked urgently, "But if so, then what is the point of the Holy Temple?" "Anymore?" Emilon replied, "The duties of the Holy Temple are not limited to just demons. And, of course, this is not forever. The hunts will be postponed until the culprit who targeted the Saintess is found. This should be easy to understand, right? So we just need to catch the culprit quickly. Since this accident happened in the palace, His Majesty the Emperor will deal with it soon." The party attendees heard this and began to whisper among themselves. Mother asked again, "What if it was just an accident? If there is no culprit, it sounds like the Holy Temple will never resume its duties." Emilon thought, "There is plenty of evidence that this was no accident, but he keeps insisting." She replied, "Instead of questioning the level of negligence in the royal palace by calling this an accident, it is more reasonable to suspect that someone did this intentionally." Mother hesitated this. Emilon thought, "You have nothing to say when you rely so heavily on the power you hold." Then she said, "Do not forget right now." She turned and said, "I am punishing you on behalf of God." Varen was leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, watching. "Emilon." The maid followed her and said, "Lady Emilon, that wound." She replied coldly, "It's not serious. Could you bring me some bandages? I don't want to cause a disturbance." The maid immediately said, "Of course." Emilon sat on a chair and sighed, thinking, how annoying. If I had been hit by the chandelier, I wouldn't have been able to walk for a month. As the Saintess, I won't die, but that doesn't mean I can't get hurt. The thought of it is terrible. The fact that someone in this world wants to kill me is frightening." She uttered, "Maybe I should leave this place." Reneben knocked on the door and said, "Lady Emilon, it's Reneben." She wondered Reneben, then replied, "Come in." He held a medical box and said, "I brought you bandages, and I have something to say, though it might not be appropriate." She reached out to take it and asked, "What is it? Why aren't you resting in your room?" Reneben said seriously, "You're too reckless today." Hearing Reneben, Emilon asked back with curiosity, "What?" He replied helplessly, "As the high priest, my duty is to protect the Saintess, so I must protect you." He also added, "Under no circumstances can you be injured. Saintess, even if it costs me my life, I do not want that to happen." After that, Emilon put down the candy jar and said, "That's enough, Sir Reneben." She seemed to be unhappy. "Did you come here just to say that? To someone who needs to rest?" Fearing her anger, Reneben seemed a bit scared, that is. Suddenly, Emilon placed a piece of candy in his mouth before he could react. She said gently in her softest voice, "I want to hear something else." She knew that Reneben felt guilty for not being able to fulfill his duty. If I leave him alone, he'll brood over it all night. So I need to talk to him. He ate it and felt a bit uncomfortable. Finding it strange, Emilon asked him, "Is the candy that bad?" Even Reneben himself didn't understand. "Honestly, I don't know why you like it." It was Emilon's specially made herbal candy, which tasted like mint. Most people didn't use it because the taste was too strong. However, Emilon said it was perfectly normal, not angry at him at all. "That's unfortunate. Would you like to sit for a while?" He replied softly, "Yes." Then followed a conversation of questions and answers with the Saintess of course, asking first, if what happened today had happened to the crown prince, how do you think people would have reacted? Do you think he would be the only one brooding? Renee Ben replied, probably not. So she acknowledged, exactly, and they're not people who are strictly bound by hierarchy. The person who moved the fastest, Duke Cashin, only protected the princess, leaving me, the one in a more dangerous position, with no one to protect me. According to royal law, the Saintess' status is higher than the princess's. The knight's priority was wrong by law, but no one reprimanded him. Emilon said quietly, in the end, that's how the nobility views the holy temple. She added, a convenient medicine, or just something that comes as soon as it's called. Then he said, they just see us as loyal dogs. That's all. At that, she also agreed with Reneben's opinion. That's why I set a boundary at the Holy Temple. We have to show them that we have the right to say no. He replied, but if a high-level demon appears like at the hunting competition, it will be a disaster. She added, they only appear once every 100 years, right? Since one just appeared recently. We will only encounter low-level demons for a while. You know, knights can handle this type. Reneben agreed. That's right. Next were Emilon's words. Well, if a high-level one appears, we'll make an exception. I don't want innocent people to suffer. Anyway, there's no law in the Holy Temple that says we can't do this, right, Sir Reneben? Reneben had to reply, yes, but his mood didn't seem to be as he wished. Meanwhile, there was the gloom of Mother's room, filled with a tense atmosphere. I've been this angry for a while now. He kept thinking, Lady Emilon, that timid mouse dares to call herself a saint and pull such a ridiculous stunt. However, it was all within his control, but she's only here for a year. What can she do on her own? You see, most of the nobles present at the party that day decided to send in their usual demon hunt requests. Those servants at the Holy Temple wouldn't dare underestimate the unity of the nobility. She should have behaved like a proper saintess. Mother the heretic, the demon, how dare the Holy Temple try to rise up against us? I'll make sure she regrets this for the rest of her life. At that moment, Emilon was checking each letter in the folder, causing them to fall one by one. She quietly burned all the letters. I knew this would happen. Look at them, completely ignoring what I said and still submitting their requests. It's as if the Holy Temple means nothing. She thought again. I wonder what will happen to the person who dropped the chandelier? The royal family said they would investigate. Suddenly, someone called her from outside with a knock on the door. Your Holiness, may I come in? Emilon replied, you may enter. What worried Emilon the most was Sir Reneben. His face was extremely pale, not at all well, as if he had just gone through a terrible shock. Aren't you resting? I'm fine. He said, you're the one who should be resting. But Emilon said cheerfully, these stubborn nobles are so troublesome. She stared blankly at the flame. They would rather die than suffer a loss. Reneben grew more and more worried. Lady Emilon, isn't the role of the Holy Temple to help those in need? Her expression made him fear he was saying something wrong. Of course I am not disloyal. Reneben's hands were clasped together, a sign of the anxiety in his sensitive soul. It's just that I'm not really completely used to it. Hearing that thought, Emilon felt as if a burden had been lifted. As expected of someone with holy power, stepping back like this is not a good thing. She said, carefully considering our duties is necessary. Perhaps I haven't explained it well enough. Could you spare a moment? Let's discuss this thoroughly. Emilon recounted the situation. After the chandelier incident, I stopped all of the Holy Temple's demon hunting activities. Then, after exchanging opinions with the priest who participated in the hunts, I've sent most of them on vacation. They've been working overtime and need a rest. After that, Reneben asked, what about the remaining priests? She replied, I've sent them to the slums. They are providing food and water and bringing the sick and orphans who need help back here. Hearing this, Reneben had a realization. Then Emilon added, Sir Reneben, think bigger. You are the high priest after all. Your responsibility should not be limited to the nobility. Please care for the people who have been ignored and hurt for so long. Reneben also realized that they were never ignored. She corrected herself. I misspoke. It's not neglect, but turning a blind eye. The nobles, the ones who apply pressure, have always been more noticeable than the common people, who cannot speak up for themselves. In any case, it's true that I was harmed, but I've decided not to see it as a bad thing. It seemed Reneben realized, you mean? Emilon said with an open heart, I mentioned bringing the sick and orphans from the slums back, right? The sick are brought back for long-term treatment, but what about the children? Hearing her story made him realize, are you planning to expand the temporary shelter? Emilon smiled, as if in approval of the high priest's remark. In memory of the commoners who died when the first prophecy appeared, I set up a small facility in the Holy Temple. It's an unofficial temporary shelter with no proper name. From there, we've brought orphans from the slums and cared for them. Then, Emilon also said, I plan to build a separate place outside the Holy Temple. I intend to build a proper orphanage, which made Renee Ben ask again, an orphanage? She said, it's a place to bring children in need of help and care for them until they become adults. Emilon's answer helped him better understand her altruistic heart, so they're just like the current facility. Then, Emilon stood up. That's right. The biggest difference is whether the facility is registered or not, which affects things like taxes and operating fees. She went to the bookshelf and added, speaking of taxes, I plan to take this opportunity to review the entire tax rate across the empire. Hearing that, he was suddenly surprised. I don't think the emperor will be pleased with that. Emilon herself agreed. That's right. It will be difficult, won't it? Even the previous saintess couldn't do it. That's why I'm trying to do this. She took out a book. Perhaps what I am about to do is part of the reason God sent me here. Understanding the sincere, tolerant heart and deep compassion within Emilon's words, Renee Ben found himself captivated by her. Few could be like her. He shot to his feet. He said strongly with all his heart, I promise to work even harder than I do now. Emilon heard his words, and she smiled brightly at the innocence of a young priest like Renee Ben. That's all I needed to hear. That night, Saintess Emilon was still diligently organizing the necessary documents for her plan. I was so busy preparing that I didn't notice. Is it this late already? Maybe I should rest and go to bed. Emilon went out. Although she had visited many places, the library in the Holy Temple was still her favorite place. The reason was, she answered softly, here it is. It was the book titled The Demon's Love. Surprisingly, the library at the Holy Temple had many romance novels. Emilon placed it on the table. They say the previous saintesses collected them over generations, so I guess they had the same taste as me. If we met, we would have become good friends. She was a little surprised. But this book has a rather interesting title, doesn't it? Well, this is a fictional novel, so I'll get a read. Once upon a time, in a mysterious forest, a demon was born. This demon observed humans and learned to think like them. It observed their voices, drawings, writing, and how they ate, dressed, and slept. After quietly learning many things, the demon finally appeared in a village, disguised as a human. The demon was not yet used to a human body, so it tripped on a stone and fell. At that moment, someone came to help the demon, and they fell in love at first sight. But as fate would have it, that man was a priest. If the demon's true identity was revealed, it would lose its life. Despite the danger, the demon became the man's lover. But perhaps the demon, lost in its dreamlike happiness, made a mistake. Not long after, the Holy Temple discovered that the priest's lover was a demon. The Holy Temple decided to eliminate that demon. So they told the priest the truth and set a trap, but the priest could not stop thinking about losing the one he loved. So he decided to run away with the demon. However, they could not escape the Holy Temple. The priest, who had been defrocked, was killed while trying to protect the demon. With death before it, the demon embraced the priest's body and said, "Why am I a demon? If only I were a human like him." Emilon was also surprised. What a novel plot. She thought about the story, a demon that can think and love like a human, if such a demon really existed. It could cause an uproar among humanity at any moment. So it's understandable that the Holy Temple would want to end it. It's a tragic situation, truly. After that, the saintess went to see the priest who was working diligently in his room, Sir Renee Ben. She lightly touched his shoulder, but Renee Ben didn't notice at all. Only when he felt a reaction did he look up Lady Emilon. She looked at the paper he was writing on. You still have work to do at this hour? Emilon had accidentally read the words on the paper Renee Ben was working on. She was not happy to discover that Count Watson, guilty of kidnapping, assaulting, and raping 21 girls, escaped punishment due to his high status. She then said, even reading just one case is interesting. You're doing a very good job of organizing as I asked, which made Renee Ben feel hesitant. Then he spoke up. It's because you gave me this task, Lady Emilon. You said you would eliminate the corrupt nobles and lower the taxes, right? She replied, that's right. As long as the tax reduction is handled reasonably, His Majesty won't object. Our only enemies are the nobles. Renee Ben felt uneasy about this, which made Emilon take notice. Why are you making that expression? He was extremely worried. I used to have a good relationship with some of these nobles. It's hard to believe they could commit such crimes. The thought of reporting them myself is a bit difficult for me. Emilon put the paper down. Are you scared? He himself admitted, yes. This time the punishment will be much heavier. She advised him, You are well aware of that. But being afraid to punish criminals will bring shame to your title of high priest. You should think of the people who have had to endure extreme suffering because of those criminals. She wanted Renee Ben to understand the situation clearly. She warned, for the sake of the victims, do not despair when bringing others down. Sir Renee Ben, please think carefully and distinguish whether behaving as you normally do is the right thing to do in this situation. After that, Renee Ben said with a lighter heart, I was too complacent. Emilon was happy to see that he had stabilized. I'm glad you understand. It's hard to notice these things if no one brings them to light. So don't be hard on yourself. Emilon carefully patted Reneben's head like a family member. She took a few stacks of documents with a smile, as if nothing had happened. You've done a good job. I will submit these documents to His Majesty tomorrow. Now go get some rest. The next day, as promised, I proposed punishment for the corrupt nobles as well as a tax reduction during the royal meeting. The nobles who had nothing left to lose, led by Duke Nestor, quickly gathered to help. It seems the letter I had asked Ronella for help with had worked. In response, the emperor decided to agree to the punishment after learning the truth about those nobles. After a tiring night of work, Emilon had the most worthwhile sleep. 2 days have passed since then. She woke up without having prepared her things. I've successfully overcome the first obstacle. Why is it so noisy outside? She looked in a mirror and saw the perfect image of someone who just woke up. Hair a mess from lying in bed for a long time. Should I go check? I can't go out like this. As Emilon was starting to fix her face, the maid called, Saintess, may I come in? She noticed that when she came out, she still hadn't changed. You're awake? She asked, why is it so noisy outside at this hour, Dian? Dian replied, they said they found the person who harmed you. Emilon finally felt more relieved. Ah, finally. The maid was sad. It was obvious she would be caught. How foolish to do that. The person seems to be a normal young girl, too. What a shame. She didn't expect a normal young girl. The maid said, it would be better if you see for yourself. You should go out there now. Emilon replied, yes, I'm going now. Then let me help you get ready. Emilon went down to the hall with Renee Ben to meet everyone. Greetings and God's blessings. Greetings and God's blessings. Emilon replied, may God bless you all. You may rise. That is the criminal, Jesse Porcha, who was arrested last night for the attempted assassination of the Saintess. She thought to herself, this person is the culprit. She said, thank you for your efforts, but why does she look like this? They replied, because the culprit resisted. The arrest process was a bit difficult. I see. Does the emperor think I want to handle things this way? The punishment I proposed for those filthy nobles was to strip them of their status and assets, but he completely missed the main point, didn't he? Emilon wanted to care for Jessie. She touched her lightly, making the girl flinch unconsciously, and to this extent, she said, I will heal you, so stay still, but Jessie trembled with fear. The girl even activated her self-defense mechanism, screaming to threaten her. That action concerned Emilon. No. Is she panicking? I have to hurry. Then, for safety, Jessie's hands were held by the soldiers, even though both her hands were cuffed. The little girl felt her spiritual and physical healing magic. Jessie knelt down, exhausted. Emilon immediately asked her, are you a little calmer now? The blue-eyed girl still couldn't stop trembling, the anxiety clear in her eyes. Please spare me, my parents. At least spare them. Emilon observed thoughtfully. She told Renee Ben, Sir Renee Ben, take the prisoner inside. I will interrogate her myself. He obeyed, yes. She turned her back, but didn't forget to instruct, from now on I will handle this. So everyone can leave, you royal knights can go too. Oh yes, we'll be on our way. Suddenly, someone approached Emilon, greetings and God's blessings. This voice, Saintess, could you spare me a moment of your time? Emilon sighed softly, oh my, your cloak is scorched. Enesis only just noticed, he exclaimed softly, ah, it must be from when I killed a demon a few days ago. She suddenly realized something was wrong and asked in confusion, isn't that something your servant should do? He replied pensively, the entire domain has been on high alert recently. Perhaps they couldn't pay attention to such small details. Emilon, hearing this, thought to herself, Duke Cashin's domain is on high alert? Noticing her silence, Enesis confessed, that is actually the reason I came to see you today. Making the nobles pay for the sins they committed, you requested that of His Majesty. Emilon suddenly understood. Ah, so that's it. She replied, yes, that's right. Enesis said again, I knew nothing of my father's crimes until today. The truth is I didn't know, even though I was right there, which makes me feel deeply ashamed. The previous Duke Cashin, like most other nobles, was an arrogant man. His crimes were mainly related to abuse of power. So it's understandable that the current Duke knew nothing, as that was just a grain of sand in the desert compared to what other nobles have done. Emilon thought to herself, it's actually quite surprising that the Duke considers abuse of power a crime. On the other side, Inesis hesitantly offered, so today, I came to show my respect too. The Saintess, thank you for bringing the crimes to light and punishing the former Duke. Emilon seemed quite confused. She asked again, don't you see me as the enemy who destroyed your father's honor? He replied in a sad, low voice, he was a good father to me, but if he committed a crime, it is right that he be punished, right? Emilon rubbed her chin, assessing inwardly. Ah, I see. Turns out Duke Cashin's character isn't so bad. I also heard that the Cashin domain has been doing well since the change in leadership. Inesis added, on behalf of my father, I sincerely apologize to you. She immediately replied to his sincere words. That's enough. I only accept apologies from the person directly involved, and I'm not the one who needs to receive an apology. Hearing that, he bowed his head and replied, in that case, I must apologize to you even more, Saintess. He moved closer to Emilion. I am truly sorry for the wound on your hand. Emilion suddenly understood. Ah, you're talking about that. On the other side, Inesis continued. I failed to protect you. As a knight, I deserve to be punished. I will accept any punishment you give. Emilion thought pensively. That's right, it was a mistake, but I don't want to punish Duke Cashin at all. It's just that I don't like the lack of respect people have for the Holy Temple. Moreover, Duke Cashin, despite being a noble, is showing sincerity in his apology. If that's the case, after thinking it through, she spoke up again. If a similar situation were to happen again, you would save me first, wouldn't you? Seeing him silent for a long time, she asked again, why don't you answer? Is your apology not sincere? Inesis slowly replied, it's true that I feel at fault. I swear on the honor of Duke Cashin. However, I deeply regret that I cannot promise I would choose differently if it happened again. Hearing that, she let out a chuckle. Emilion added cheerfully, I'm sorry, that was a bit of a bad joke. I have no intention of punishing you, Duke. Even if your actions are considered wrong in this country, I understand why you chose to save the person more precious. To you. Inesis listened silently to her words. Emilion continued. Of course, when the chandelier fell, both of them were safe while I would have certainly been harmed. Obviously, saving me would have been more logical. But you know, emotions don't always align with logic. Since you came all this way to apologize, I'll let it go. Then Emilion suggested, but may I ask a question? Please stand up. Inesis immediately complied. All right. She began to pose her question. When did you start to like Princess Ronella? Emilion thought mischievously. This is a good opportunity to hear directly how he fell for the princess. It's like getting an extra chapter from the male lead's perspective in a romance novel, an irresistible experience. Inesis began to speak softly. That, he asked her back. Inesis covered his mouth, looking extremely shocked. Why do I like Ronella? Emilion thought to herself. I thought he would say love needs no reason. But does he really not know why? That's a bit awkward. Inesis rubbed his forehead and stammered. No, it's nothing. I just like her because she's Ronella. That's enough. Emilion washed her hands in a basin of water. As she dried her hands, she thought, Duke Cashin's reaction bothers me. He seemed flustered and left quickly. Suddenly, a voice rang out, catching her attention. Hey, Saintess, can you give me the towel you just used? A young man who had just arrived held out his hand and said to her. Emilion replied politely. Thank you. Hearing that, he seemed a little shy. It's nothing. We're the ones who should be thanking you. She thought to herself, so cute. However, on the outside, she still asked seriously. Do you know if Renee Ben is here? The young man replied, he's probably in the drawing room at the end of the hall. Hearing that, she turned to leave, not forgetting to say, thank you. Emilion walked towards the closed door. She told herself, I need to handle things here too. It sounds quite noisy inside. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Renee Ben gently coaxing. Lady Jessie Pacha, please calm down. On this side, Jessie was in a panic, one hand tightly gripping a knife, the other holding a vial. She screamed her lungs out. Stay away from me. Seeing Emilion arrive, Renee Ben turned to greet her. You're here, she replied. Yes, but what's going on here? Hearing her question, he answered quickly. While serving tea, she drew a weapon that she had strapped around her thigh. Emilion replied softly, indicating she understood. She rubbed her chin, speculating to herself. It looks like a sedative. Is she planning to escape? Something like this won't work on me. Renee-ben added. It seems they didn't care about a suitable person found in the palace. They ignored her, beat her, and arrested her. They said they couldn't take her to the palace and came straight here. Emilian responded, Is that so? She astutely realized. That means no one has had contact with her besides the knights. This could actually be beneficial for us. With that thought, she approached Jessie. Seeing this, the girl backed away in fear. Emilian quickly reassured her. Calm down. If we intended to harm you, you wouldn't have been brought to this room. Despite her efforts to explain, Jessie just kept screaming. Evil, she shouted while swinging her hand, stabbing and slashing wildly in the air. Suddenly, the sharp knife in Jessie's hand fell. It spun once in the air and, coincidentally, stopped right in front of the toe of Emilian's shoe. Seeing this, she quickly picked up the knife. Jessie on the other side fell into a state of panic. Vic, the girl clasped her hands and begged, Please spare me. I promise I won't do anything. Emilian held the knife, hesitating slightly. What should I do with you? Jessie squatted down in fear and stammered. Saintus, please have mercy. Emilian then raised the knife high. The girl raised her hands to shield herself, screaming in absolute terror. Unlike what Jessie thought, Emilian just tossed the knife behind her and bent down to say to her, I wasn't going to stab you. Emilian brought her face close to the girl's and asked seriously, Jessie Pacha, why are you doing this? You're not even the real culprit, yet you were dragged to the holy temple. Jessie, still trembling, insisted on her guilt. But I am the culprit. Emilian then snatched the vial from the girl's hand and said, Who says that while carrying something like this with them? She held the vial, pressed the button, and tried to persuade Jessie, if you calmly admitted your fault, that would be one thing. But if you're going to resist like this, you should at least claim your innocence to be more believable. Emilian asked further, So why do you think you were the culprit? The girl answered honestly, Because I was the one who dropped the chandelier that day. Emilian continued to press. How exactly? She continuously questioned Jessie. If you used a tool, explain which one. If you used magic, then show me here. The girl, cornered, her face darkened, and she froze. Emilian glanced down at the girl, smiled lightly, and said, Strange, isn't it? A culprit who confesses but can't explain. Why is that? Then she came to a conclusion for herself. The answer was clear. Emilian looked straight at the terrified Jessie and thought, Jessie Pacha is not the culprit. She turned away and thought to herself, the royal knights must not have found anything. So when someone came forward and confessed, they seized the opportunity and brought her in using force, no less. So who arranged for her to confess? In Jessie's vision, a black-robed wizard placed a hand on her head and commanded, You just need to admit that you are the culprit. But if you're discovered and cause trouble for us. Realizing her impossible dilemma, Jessie immediately declared loudly and firmly, No, I am the culprit. In her mind, she thought, no matter what, I have to hide it. I can't let it be discovered or my parents won't be safe. Jessie continued to speak. It's just that I can't remember right now. That ghostly wizard's hand gripped her head, giving her the courage to continue. I really did it. Hearing that, Emil sat down in front of her and said gently, Jessie Pacha. No, Lady Jessie. Jessie replied in confusion. Yes. Emil spoke as if she could see right through the girl's heart. You can't fool me with that acting. I'm sure you're not the culprit. She placed a hand on her chest, smiled like a goddess, and then asked, You're worried about your family, aren't you? Jessie gripped her dress tightly, not daring to say a word. Emil turned to order Renee-ben. Sir Renee-ben, send someone to Baron Pacha's residence immediately. He was a little surprised. Yes. Emil then gave him a careful mission. We will bring Lady Jessie's entire family to the Holy Temple to ensure their safety. Explain to the Baron and his wife that this is for their daughter's sake. He bowed his head respectfully. Yes, ma'am. Jessie asked again, startled. What? Emil looked at the girl gently. Looking like an angel, she said softly, I want to help you. Will you help me too? Jessie, now with tears welling in her eyes, clung to a small glimmer of hope and asked weakly, Will you really protect my whole family, Thuatan? No? Emil lifted the girl's hand and replied, Of course. In her mind, she thought, I always protect what is in my hands. Jessie saw she had a chance to turn the situation around. Her face flushed, drenched in tears of joy and fear. Then the girl collapsed into Emilion's arms and burst into tears. Renee Ben knocked on the door from outside and called, "Lady Emile 1, it's Renee Ben." She replied from inside, "Come in." He stood at the entrance and said, "Excuse me, I was told that Lady Pacha is also with you all." She answered, "That's right, here she is." Looking to the other side, Jessie had been changed into a very cute green lady's dress. Emile 1 then said, "I decided to treat her as a guest, not a criminal, and I can't let a guest's clothes be dirty, right?" Renee Ben was a little surprised, but replied calmly, "I understand. I have sent a priest and a carriage to the Pacha residence." Emile 1 patted the seat and told him, "Very good. We're just about to talk. Come and sit here." He replied awkwardly, "Yes." Then she offered a jar of candy to Jessie and said, "Have some, Lady Jessie. It will help you relax." Jessie quickly held out both hands to receive it. "Thank you." And so they both sat there eating candy, their mouths full, the sound of chewing echoing crisply. Suddenly, while eating, something happened to Jessie that made her puff up her cheeks as if she had eaten something strange, while Emile 1 was still eating with her eyes closed in enjoyment. So refreshing. The girl clutched her mouth, not daring to spit it out in a panic. "What's wrong with this? Is this edible?" Seeing Jessie's distress, Emile 1 reached out to ask, "Lady Jessie, you can't just swallow it like that. You're not choking, are you?" Jessie quickly apologized. "I'm sorry. The flavor was so strong that I accidentally swallowed it." Emile 1 closed her eyes and said proudly, "Perhaps no one has truly appreciated this type of candy yet." Then she said seriously, "By the way, Lady Jessie, it's time for you to tell us everything." After that, she also added a small threat. "Remember one thing, I do not forgive liars." Jessie lowered her head, recalling everything that happened in the past. The girl now opened up and told Emile 1 everything. "Yes. Recently, Baron Pacha's domain has been on the verge of collapse. My uncle, Marquis Charon, took away the mine that was my family's main source of income and pushed his debts onto my family." Emile 1 said calmly, "I see." Jessie continued her story. "About a week before the party, a man came to see me. He gave me a large sum of money and told me to do as he said." The girl fell silent sadly, remembering that day when she met that mysterious man, the same day she was forced to take the blame. She then recounted in great detail. "He told me to drop the chandelier on the Saintess's head, and when people investigate, you are to confess to being the culprit. If you do as you're told, this money will be yours." He said if I was exposed and caused trouble for his side, he could not guarantee my family's safety. Emile 1 listened for a while, then turned to ask more. "So you don't know how this crime was carried out?" Jessie replied in disappointment, "I'm afraid not." Renee Ben, who was beside her, also spoke up. "Do you remember if that person had any distinguishing features?" Jessie then remembered something. "When that man gave me the money bag, thinking back to when he gave me the money, I noticed a black tattoo on his wrist. It looked like two snakes biting the wings of an eagle." Suddenly realizing something, Emile 1 turned in alarm and asked, "Sir Renee Ben, could it be?" He answered immediately, "Yes, that is the symbol of the apostates." Emile 1 recalled that dark symbol and pondered. The apostates, a secret group of dark wizards who commit crimes and oppose the holy temple. They're so deep in the shadows that not much is known about them, which makes dealing with them quite a headache. I never thought they would target a royal party. To protect Jessie and her family, Emile 1 turned to instruct her. "Lady Jessie, you and your family should stay here from today. If the apostates are involved, the holy temple is the safest place for everyone." Jessie replied hastily, "Yes." Emile 1 also took the opportunity to say a few other things to Jessie. "However, you won't be able to completely relax because you made a deal with the culprit. You will be under the scrutiny of those around you." Jessie didn't seem to mind and replied, "Compared to the time I was lost, not knowing whether to run or end it all, a little scrutiny is nothing." Then this girl shot up, bowed deeply before Emile 1 to show her gratitude and respect, and said, "Thank you for giving me this chance. No matter what happens, I will follow you, Saintess." Emile 1 also added to help ease Jessie's worries. "If you keep your promise, it won't be long before everyone sympathizes with you, Lady Jessie." The girl also honestly stated what she wanted. "Saintess, please feel free to call me by my name. I want to be your devoted servant here." Following Jessie's lead, Emile 1 also replied, "All right, Jessie, I look forward to working with you." Renee Ben, seeing this, was surprised and awkwardly called out, "Lady Emile 1." She glanced at him and asked, "What is it?" He replied, "Me too. Just like Jesse, Renee Ben also said honestly. You should also call me by my name normally, or she cut him off. I would be very happy if you did that. Renee Ben asked shyly. You mean Renee Ben? Then he replied respectfully. Yes, please speak naturally with me too. Emil One smiled brightly and kindly replied. All right, Renee Ben. Soon, a day had passed. It was dark inside the residence, and only Emilone's thoughts could be heard. I thought today would end with many new gains, but Emil One was standing on the balcony. She looked up at the sky and asked, why did you come here? In front of her was Varen. He appeared out of nowhere. She was stunned. Lord Nestra. Emil One touched her face and said with a bright smile, it seems the princess and you both have a habit of arriving unannounced, don't you? Is this a hobby of the Nestra family? Varen lowered his face and said calmly, I didn't intend to be discovered like this. Hearing this, Emil One thought to herself, is that supposed to be an explanation? He looked at her and asked with curiosity, I'm using an invisibility spell. Can you see me? Emil One replied, yes, I can see you perfectly. Varen looked down and said, please don't misunderstand. Next to the window, the candle flame crackled. His voice echoed in the room. I came to the holy temple with no ill intentions. Emil One then said seriously, I don't know how important your business is, but the fact remains that you enter my office without permission. Seeing him silent, she continued, so what did you want to say? Varen turned his head as if looking for something, and then suddenly exclaimed, a scent. He turned towards the direction of the scent and said, it's getting worse. Varen started to move his feet as he spoke. And the reason for that is, Emil One stared at his every move. Suddenly he lunged forward, grabbed her neck, brought his face close to hers, and said, is it you, Saintess? Emil One angrily grabbed his wrist and pulled it away from her neck. How rude. Then she got to the main point. The ban on demon hunting has been lifted, right? Varen pulled his hand back and said, the ban on demon hunting, what about it? Emil One was confused. That's not what you meant? Then he continued, more importantly, Saintess. Then he made a request to her. What do you think about making a pact with me? Emil One crossed her arms, puzzled. A pact? Varen clarified. That's right. Avoid all interaction with my sister. She rested her chin on her hand, pondering. Such an unusual condition. Then she replied, that's a bit difficult. I already have some connection from having served as the princess's guard once. And with the reports about the incident, I'm still worried. Varen quickly reassured her. I will take care of that myself. You don't need to worry about the affairs of the Nestra, Saintess. His eyes gradually turned cold as he said, as the heir, I have returned to resolve them. Hearing that, Emil One thought, it seems he really wants me to back off. She then spoke up. You said it was a pact, right? She took his hand. More surprisingly, Emil One brought Varon's hand up and placed a noble kiss on it. Then she sealed his condition. I agree with you. Emil One looked up, looking very beautiful. So what will I get in return? Varon froze for a moment. He pulled his hand back. Then he covered his mouth and said shyly, I will protect you. Emil One was a little skeptical. Protect me? Varon then affirmed more decisively. When you are in danger, I can protect you. I am quite proficient in high-level magic. She stood touching her chin, trying to consider it carefully. Well, just like the chandelier incident, there will be many more incidents like this in the future. Since I need to keep my distance from the princess, having some connection with the young master of the Nestro house is a good thing. After a moment of hesitation, Emil One also agreed with Varon. All right, I agree. He also added, about my sister. Emil One quickly asked, what about her? Varon turned his head away, but said it anyway. You just need to avoid interacting with her. I won't interfere if she comes looking for you. Varon left, but still turned his head back to say one last time like a promise. So if you need anything, just call for me. I will be waiting. Scene changed to the next day. Outside Emilone's residence, the sky was bright and early, and the chirping of birds could be heard. Chirping. Renee Ben and Jesse were already standing at her door. Jesse called out, Saintess, it's time to wake up. Emil One sat up drowsily and replied, all right. But in her head, she complained, I'm so tired. I didn't get enough sleep because of that Nestro guy. Half asleep, she sauntered over to Jesse, who was holding a tray with a glass of water. But I have to get up. As she drank the water, she thought, today is an important day. Still groggy from sleep, not paying attention to the glass of water, Emil One drank it hastily and then froze, chilled to the bone. It's ice water. Renee Ben came over and draped a towel over her. She immediately turned and asked, is there a scent in the towel? He replied, I noticed you like the scent of Titus, so I put it on the towel. Emil One touched the towel and said happily, thank you. It smells wonderful. She thought to herself, they really take care of every little detail. To protect these kind people, I have to win today. Scene changed to inside the palace meeting room. A few people had already arrived, their whispered conversations echoing. Mitra stood to one side, deep in thought. Saintess Emile won. Not only did she dare to threaten us at the last royal meeting, he walked with countless thoughts swirling in his head, but she also succeeded in taking down many nobles. Did I underestimate her? She even summoned us here for this new idea in her childish game. This is too humiliating for my reputation. Then he looked up at the sanctuary. Up there was Emile one. She was dressed in the attire of a true saintess, sitting majestically on the main chair in the room. Mitra immediately said respectfully, "Greetings and God's blessings." Emile one just gave a slight nod upon hearing him. Seeing that she didn't deign to reply to him, he became furious and cursed inwardly. This arrogant wench. Then Mitra turned his head away, trying to calm himself. "No, calm down. That attitude will disappear today." Emile one then spoke to everyone. "Everyone has traveled a long way to be here. Thank you all." Mitra was already seated with his arms crossed, his heart still resentful. She threatens the peace of the empire. A saintess like that must be dealt with quickly. Fortunately, I have the perfect tool for that. Job. He recalled the mysterious purple liquid and plotted silently. A poison so strong that even the saintess cannot escape it. Mitra looked up at Emile one with a dangerous, calculating scheme. Soon, the holy temple will lose its saintess without anyone knowing who did it, and I won't have to worry about the money I worked so hard to earn being wasted. Now, Renee Ben had brought her a cup of water, which was the poison Mitra mentioned. Seeing her holding the cup from that priest, he felt a great urgency in his heart. "Come on, drink it." Seeing Emile one raise the cup to her lips, Mitra's heart burned with anticipation. "Go die, Emile one." Suddenly, she spoke. "This is..." Mitra jumped and unconsciously shrugged. In astonishment, Emile one had drunk the entire cup. A trace remained on the corner of her mouth. She touched her lips, gave a mysterious smile, and said, "Poison." The people in the holy temple heard Emile one and suddenly shouted out questions. Poison? Did the high priest try to kill the saintess? Renee Ben immediately denied his involvement. "That's not it. Lady Emile one, I didn't do it." She just calmly held the teacup, looked up at his worried face, and comforted him. "Calm down. I know it wasn't you." Then her ruby eyes glinted dangerously. She glanced at the worried, whispering crowd below and said cryptically, "There are still people out there who haven't woken up and want me dead." At this moment, someone spoke up, drawing her attention. It was Mitra. "Saintess, are you suspecting your guests?" This is the holy temple. The tea was also prepared and brought by a priest, which means only a priest could have administered the poison. At the same time, several others agreed with him. It seems so. A priest has betrayed his master. Emile one thought pensively. That's not wrong, because the tea is brewed from a flower grown in the holy temple. The ingredients were not the problem. The poison must have been added during brewing or delivery. But it can't be a priest. Perhaps, just like with Jesse, one of the servants was bribed. Suddenly a voice cut through her thoughts. "Ahem, everyone, please calm down. That person was Helio. He offered his opinion. Shouldn't we first see if the saintess is all right or not?" She replied immediately after. "Oh, I'm fine." She thought to herself, "There's a little blood, but it will heal right away." He didn't press further and moved on to the previous matter, which surprised her a little. "Glad to hear it. If so, can we continue the meeting as planned? Let's do it quickly. We still have time to find the culprit." Mitra frowned in confusion. What's with the sage? Why is he being so proactive? Although he thought this, he didn't dare say it out loud. "Sir Sage, what do you mean? Are you saying one of the nobles is the culprit?" He didn't deny it. "Correct." He asked further. "None of us were near the saintess, were we? So how can you say that with such confidence?" Helio scratched his cheek and replied, "Well, I've never heard of a servant in the holy temple being dissatisfied with the saintess. In fact, it's just a suspicion for now." He sighed in relief and said, TSK, there was clearly done by someone inside the holy temple." Suddenly, he retorted, "But if someone could poison the tea without directly accessing it, wouldn't that still make us suspects?" Mitra's heart skipped a beat. He laughed to deflect. "What a joke. Now is not the time." He scratched his head worriedly. "What do you mean? A joke? It's up to the saintess to decide." "I apologize. Let's continue the meeting." Emilon observed and judged inwardly. Marquis Mitra's expression is truly suspicious. And what does Helio know about poison? Outwardly, she maintained a calm appearance and said, "That's right. In this situation, let's get straight to the point." She raised her hand, thinking to herself, "Since we're already here, we should have a quick meeting," and said to everyone, "As I said in the recent royal meeting, I have no intention of changing my position. I will lower the taxes to the proposed level and build an orphanage in each territory. Now, anyone who objects, please raise your hand." Mitra immediately turned to stop her Wait, Saintess. Suddenly, singing was heard from outside the holy temple, and the surroundings trembled abnormally. She wondered to herself, an earthquake? Renee Ben shouted, "Me milady, outside the window." Emilon rushed to look out the window, realizing in astonishment. There, outside the holy temple, purple liquids appeared, falling one by one onto the holy temple. What she guessed was a demon. Everyone in the holy temple panicked. No way. In the holy temple? She turned back to reassure them. Calm down. Then she asked him, Renee Ben, how many do you see? He replied worriedly, about 10 or more. Emilon quickly proposed a plan. You should go outside the holy temple with the other priests, stay as far away from the demons as possible, and focus on evacuating the people outside. He refused as he couldn't help but worry about her. Milady Emilon, I should stay here. She stepped in front of him and repeated the order. Renee Ben, if the demons get past the wall, things will be worse. Evacuating the people around the holy temple is the top priority. He remained silent, not answering. Then he turned and left. Understood. Mitra suddenly slammed his hand on the table and shouted, as if giving an order, Saintess, what are you waiting for? Go catch them. She tilted her head and asked back, Are you asking for my help? He raised his voice. Don't talk as if you're doing us a favor. Hunting demons is the duty of the holy temple. The others chimed in, Right, hurry up and deal with them. Who else can do it but you? Saintess. She turned to call her maid. Jessie. She quickly replied. Do you remember the guest list? Can you list the names of the mages and knights? The maid stammered in reply. She paid no mind and spoke to everyone. Focus. Those whose names I call, please step forward. Someone asked, Why are you calling our names? She replied, Right now, the Holy Temple doesn't have enough manpower to deal with those demons. The hunts have been temporarily suspended. So many priests have gone on other missions. Therefore, anyone with combat ability, please cooperate. Follow me outside to destroy them. Quickly, everyone refused. Not going, it's too dangerous, I won't do it. She calmly uttered a threat. That's right, look how big they are. They could eat someone. That's why you have to kill them before they eat us. However, she thought to herself, You're scared. I know. If I could, I want to run away too. Then Emilon commanded, As the Saintess, I order all who live in this world to participate in the hunt. Just then, a person stepped forward. It was Enesis. He placed a hand on his chest and said, They don't look like low-level demons. We can only injure them and hinder their movements. She replied immediately, Yes, that's enough. I will finish them myself. He bowed in acceptance. Understood. Then he turned to look at everyone. What is everyone doing? Step forward, knights and mages of the Wesley Empire. For the peace of the Empire, follow the Saintess's command. A few people turned pale, clenching their fists to place on their chests, and stammered in reply. Yes. Emilon stood beside him and thanked him. Thank you. He apologized in turn. I apologize for interfering. With such a small group, I'm not sure how much help we can be. She said with certainty. Don't worry, I will protect you. I promise to send you back safely. He glanced at her and thought to himself, with the Saintess here, there should be nothing to worry about. But I still feel uneasy. Outside the holy temple, mages holding staffs unleashed their power. A voice commanded, Mages attack. A magical explosion was immediately created. The attacked demons let out cries of pain. Enesis, holding his sword at the forefront, commanded, Knights, advance. The other knights replied, Understood. He shouted, Strike once then retreat immediately right now. Saintess. Emilon stepped forward to destroy the demon. A stream of blue blood spurted out, splattering on her. She just calmly wiped it away. She charged forward to fight while thinking. Has the carrier pigeon reached the palace yet? Reinforcements must arrive immediately. When they arrive, the battle will end sooner. Then the priests can join us here, and we will be able to clear the area more safely. Suddenly, a voice caught her attention. This demon is so strange. A demon like a tall pile of sludge, with a few sharp thorns around it. Suddenly, that demon shot out and destroyed the people nearby. They didn't have time to react and died screaming in pain. Those demons clung to the city wall. The wall began to spread. Cracks appeared on the wall as it couldn't withstand the demon's attack. A reporter shouted, The outer wall is collapsing. The ordinary people who saw it panicked and screamed. It's a demon run. Renee Ben tried to stop them, but it was useless. Everyone calm down. Emilon gritted her teeth and cursed inwardly. Damn it, I have to deal with the demons spilling out first. At this moment, someone caught her eye. It was a little blue-haired girl named Chun, running and crying out, Mommy! She was stunned, a child. Suddenly, the little girl tripped and whimpered. She ran towards the little girl, thinking, I have to find a safe place for them. Suddenly, a scream rang in her ear. Mitra, being chased by a demon from behind, was the owner of that scream. She was surprised. Duke Mitra? He grimaced and shooed away. Go away, I said go away. Bitterness in his heart. Why did I get caught up in this? The little girl, Chun, came into his sight. He was a little surprised. Oh, quickly he grabbed Chen's clothes. Here it is. Emilon watched in horror at the scene before her. He had thrown the little girl towards the demon to use as a shield. She immediately dashed off, hugging the little girl to shield her from the demon. But the thorns on the demon's body accidentally pierced her. She gritted her teeth and groaned in pain. At this moment, a sword blade stained with blue blood scraped along the ground as it approached. Inesis held his sword and slashed straight at that demon. He asked worriedly, Saintis, are you all right? Saintis. Chun, being held by her, also asked unconsciously with concern. Huh? She put her hand on the little girl's head and thought angrily. How could he do that to a child, turning the weak into prey to save themselves? Shamelessness has its limits, doesn't it? Suddenly, a spark of electricity appeared at the ends of her hair. A flash of lightning struck down, forcing Inesis and Mitra to cover their eyes. What is that? Helio, in the Holy Temple, was surprised. That is a power only the first Saintess possessed. Renee Ben, who was outside witnessing the mortal world, the divine punishment, mumbled, Milady Emilon. That lightning completely destroyed all the demons in the Holy Temple. She gently asked Chen, Little girl, are you okay? The little girl, crying, stammered in reply, Yes, I'm okay. Inesis approached worriedly. Saintess, are you injured? She supported the little girl and replied, I'm fine. Take the child away first. Suddenly her body tilted uncontrollably. In her vision were the figures of the little girl and Inesis calling out worriedly, Milady Emilon. She realized, oh, I've lost too much blood. At night, in a formal room with many chandeliers hanging, a figure under the blanket groaned. That person was Emilon. Her wounds had been bandaged. She held her head and thought, finally awake. Is it already dark? It seems the people in the Holy Temple took care of me when I was unconscious. My back hurts so much, but it's been bandaged so. She asked through the closed door. Someone who was outside that door. Emilon got out of bed and asked, Is that you, young Master Nestron? The door suddenly opened, and Varen walked in. How did you know it was me? How are you feeling? She put on a robe and walked over, saying, I never expected you to ask me such a question. Varen just replied calmly, I'm just a mage who was dispatched here. If you had called according to our pact, I would have arrived sooner. In her heart, she realized something. He did say he would protect me. Now that he mentions it, I remember. Didn't he mention that the scent was getting worse when he came here last time? Did he know the demons were coming? Could young Master Nestron be behind this? No, that kind of person wouldn't be kind enough to help. She smiled and said, We handled it ourselves, so let's save that chance for next time. He began to recount the situation after she fainted. I've already restored the damaged area with magic. The priests have thoroughly examined the area, so there are no traces of demons left, from what I've heard. The Saintess's divine punishment completely turned them to ash, leaving nothing behind. She recalled thinking divine punishment. So that sudden feeling of anger I felt was actually an expression of the Saintess's power. After listening, she thanked him. I understand. Thank you for helping with the cleanup. He changed the subject. I'm sure the High Priest will tell you all the details. Oh, and Ronella stopped by. A worried Renee Ben stopped her at the door. Emilon asked again, The princess? Varen crossed his arms and replied, That's right, but the High Priest saw her out and said the Saintess needed to rest. She raised her chin and wondered to herself. Renee Ben saw the princess out, even though he actually respects her. She smiled and said, What could the princess be thinking, coming here at a time like this? In her heart, she thought, although the princess clearly dislikes me, she still kept her promise to repay her debt. Is she acting with some secret intention? She guessed. Perhaps she came because the crown prince was here. Varen asked her back, Do you like Ronella, Saintess? She was silent for a moment, then smiled insincerely. Is there anyone who doesn't like the princess? He was silent for a while. Recalling her beautiful figure, he said, Ronella is a lovely child. She will have to be just a lovely child. His eyes suddenly turned cold and held a strange obsession. She placed a hand near her mouth and hummed to herself. She covered her mouth and said with a smile, Of course, if the princess isn't cute, then who in this empire is? Varen didn't mention this again. Well, I have to go now. My parents will worry. She was confused in her head. The Duke and Duchess are worried? She asked, Oh my, you're returning to the mansion at this hour? He bowed his head in farewell. As an heir, I don't want them to worry about anything. I'm leaving now. She watched his retreating back with some surprise. How surprising. It seems he really cares about his parents, which seems a bit different from how he treats his little sister. He really is a mysterious person. The next morning, in the Saintis' office, Emilon sat on a chair and said, "With that, yesterday's chaos has ended. Thank you for your hard work, but I'm quite surprised. Everyone agreed with my point of view, even Marquis Mishra, who usually shows contempt. Renee, Ben, and Helio took turns speaking with a smile. Everyone was quite shocked by what happened. That's right. Who would have thought we were living in the same era as a saintess who can use divine punishment?" She asked. "Divine punishment is the ability to obliterate a target, right?" He replied, "Yes. According to the records, that's correct. It's a power only the first saintess possessed, so there aren't many documents about it." She thought to herself, "So if I want to use it again, I have to practice on my own." She placed her hand on the paper and said, "If they all retreated out of fear of the divine punishment, it's understandable. But more importantly, Sir Helio, did you stay behind because you have something to discuss with me?" He admitted, "Ah, yes. I'm also involved in the investigation of the chandelier incident. Didn't the high priest say that traces of demon poison were found on the chandelier?" She replied, "Yes, that's right." He clenched his fists and said worriedly, "To make sure there are no future health problems for the injured, we first checked what kind of poison it was. Ah, it turned out to be a very unusual toxin." Emilon asked again, "Unusual?" Helio replied, "Yes, this poison has a strange nature. It seems to be attracted to any holy power nearby." She repeated, quite surprised, "A poison that attracts holy power?" He continued, "Besides, its creation involved magic. Therefore, it is not bound by any physical form. As long as the conditions are right, even in liquid form, its toxicity can spread beyond the liquid. So, as long as someone with holy power approaches the level that the liquid reacts to, they will be poisoned." After hearing this, Renee Ben was a little confused. "But Sage, I don't show any signs of being poisoned, and my body doesn't have the ability to resist poison like the Saintess." Helio glanced at him, scratched his head, and said, "Well, this might be a bit much to say, but could it be because the Saintess's holy power far surpasses yours, High Priest?" She quickly understood. "You mean the poison concentrated on me because my holy power is stronger?" He nodded. Considering the situation, that's likely the case. He crossed his arms worriedly. "If that's the case, then..." Suddenly she cut him off. "How interesting, Sage. Since you're telling me this directly, I assume you think the poison I was exposed to at yesterday's meeting is the exact same, right?" He replied, "Yes, that's right." She agreed. "Makes sense. With a poison like that, there's no need to directly put anything in my teacup when I drink the tea. They could release the poison from a distance and make it seem like there was poison in the tea." His speculation was exactly the same as hers. "Yes, exactly." She continued, "So, to secure actual evidence, we need to find what contained the poison." He recalled, regretfully, "Ah, yesterday we didn't have a chance to search everyone's belongings." She remained calm and said, "Everyone was too distracted by the demons. If they took it back and destroyed it, we can't do anything." He immediately proposed an action. "They might have secretly destroyed it during the chaos. I will gather some people and search the area." At this moment, a girl in a white dress with blue patterns, carrying a small bag, ran in excitedly. "Saintess, Saintess!" Emilon recognized the little girl, a little surprised in her heart. "That's the child from yesterday." The little girl smiled happily and said, "Wow, it's really the Saintess." But Jessia placed a hand on her shoulder to stop her. "Wait, that's disrespectful." The little girl, being picked up by her, whined in discomfort. The maid apologized to her. "I'm sorry, Milady Emilon." The little girl insisted on coming, so I had no choice. She said the little girl wanted to give you something. She stood up and asked again, "For me?" The little girl, still being held, rummaged in her bag, smiled and said, "Yes, I found it yesterday, and it looks expensive." Helio turned and saw the object in astonishment. Chen beamed, opening her small hands. In her hands was the empty poison vial they had just been discussing. "Here, I want to give it to you." "Your Holiness," in the trial presided over by the Emperor. The truth was revealed that Marquis Mishra possessed a rare poison vial. The Emperor immediately sentenced him for the crime of attempting to assassinate the Saintess. As a result, Marquis Mishra received the death penalty, but he vehemently denied it. He said, "I swear, I did nothing in the incident at the party." Of course, the Emperor didn't listen. He clearly wanted to quickly resolve the incident that happened at the palace party. There was nothing more to be done. The Emperor asked Emilon, "Are you satisfied now, Saintess? More incidents like this will only cause trouble for the Empire. I hope you will restrain yourself. Emilon held her sword, thinking to herself, that's a clear warning. I can only hope there won't be anything else that needs to be decided. I also need time to train my body. My current powers are an abundant source of holy power, extraordinary strength, and divine punishment. What I've learned about divine punishment is that it consumes a large amount of stamina when used. At that time, fainting wasn't just because of losing too much blood, but also because using too much holy power at once had completely drained my stamina. Furthermore, if I improve my swordsmanship and martial arts, then negotiating with apostates will be easier. The paladin looked at her, clapping in praise. Your basic stance is already perfect. She asked back, really? He replied, yes, you just need to control your breathing. Emilon handed the sword to the paladin. All right, he encouraged her. Well, that's enough for today. You've worked hard, Saintess. She was happy. Thank you. Chun sat on the ground and groaned. Ouch. Next to her was a golden dog barking, woof, woof. Emilon turned and saw the little girl, calling out to Chun. The young child who picked up the poison vial was Chun Aina. Because Chun couldn't find her family, the holy temple decided to raise her. Although suddenly living in a strange place would be scary, Chun adapted so well that my worries were for nothing. She thought, adapted so well that something like this could happen. Emilon asked the little girl, where did you pick up this dog? Chun replied, in front of the holy temple gate. Its fur is so soft. She looked at it and deduced, it seems to have an owner. The little girl was scared. I just saw it wandering alone. Like me, are you angry because I brought it in without asking? Emilon patted Chin's head. No, I'm not angry. She thought, it's just that what you said is so heartbreaking. She asked the little girl, it didn't bite you or anything, did it? Chin said, no, the dog is very friendly and just played with me. The dog, knowing everyone was talking about it, immediately barked. Woof, woof. Emilon turned to ask the paladin, can you call Jesse? We need to change the little girl's clothes. He said, yes. Suddenly she wondered, Chun, isn't Jesse with you? The little girl said briskly, well, everyone is busy decorating the garden and seeing off the priests. Emilon thought, everyone is busy preparing for the goddess festival. She asked further, what about the other children? Weren't you playing with them inside? Chun froze for a moment, hesitating. Her face hardened. She called, Chun. Emilon thought, is she being bullied? The golden dog stuck out its tongue playfully. It ran around the two of them. Woof, woof. Seeing this, she asked it, oh, you wanted to play with you too? Emilon petted the puppy. You're quite friendly. The dog lay on its back, looking very happy. Chin sat down and rubbed its belly, laughing wow. The little girl said to her, Saintess, you should pet its head too. Emilon replied, oh, okay. She touched the dog's fur. Emilon exclaimed, so soft. Chin laughed brightly, right? She rested her chin on her hand and thought, a handsome, friendly, and affectionate dog. Jesse, in a maid's uniform, rushed out from inside, calling, Milady Emilon. Emilon heard the call, Jesse. The maid said, I came to take Chin back. Oh, so the dog really went inside? Chin looked at Emilon. Am I going back alone? She told the little girl, go inside, change your clothes, and have lunch. The little girl waved, puppy, come play again next time. The puppy barked once, woof. Emilon said to it, our Chun is so polite, isn't she? Look at you two being separated even though you want to keep playing. The puppy barked a few times as if in agreement. Woof, woof. She petted its head. You seem cute too. I can't imagine how your family must feel looking for you. Should we go look for them together? Suddenly the puppy dashed off somewhere, startling Emilon. Oh, she hurriedly chased after it. Hey kid, stop right there. Emilon chased it to the garden. She thought it ended up going into the garden. The dog suddenly turned its head back and barked, woof, woof. It pounced on her. She only had time to act. The golden puppy licked all over her face. Woof, woof, woof. Emilon laughed. Ha ha, stop it, that tickles. Ha ha ha. Suddenly someone approached. She felt someone's presence. Ha, so tired. Gassidra looked at Emilon. What are you doing? She froze. Emilon could only say, greetings, your highness. She thought, I'm doomed. He might think the saintess has lost her mind and isn't maintaining her dignity. Move aside, puppy. He picked up the puppy and threw it away, to Emilon's astonishment. She immediately asked, what are you doing? He said to someone, entering the holy temple without permission wasn't enough. Now you dare to tease the saintess too? This is a capital crime. Now get up. Before Emilon could understand what was happening, she saw the dog turned into a person, unsmiled like a flower, and said nonchalantly, sorry for being disrespectful. Emilon looked at him, confused. Recalling the brown puppy from before, she thought to herself, that cute, fluffy puppy has turned into a tall person. Even the hair color is different. Un then introduced himself very seriously. It is an honor to meet God's blessing. I am Untervan. Seeing him like that, Emilon judged awkwardly in her heart. This guy really has no shame at all. Outwardly, she still acted normal, raised her teacup, and then also introduced herself. I am Emilon, the master of the Holy Temple. It's a pleasure to meet you, young Master Teravan. Speaking of which, I've never known anyone from the Count's family who could turn into an animal. Gasidra then slowly explained to her. To be precise, Teravan is half human, half beast. That's why he can transform into two forms. As you know, the issue of hybrids is quite sensitive, so very few people know about this. I'm only sharing this with you now because I trust you. After listening for a while, it dawned on Emilon. So this person is rare. No wonder I didn't know. Then she spoke up. I understand why young Master Teravan can turn into an animal. However, I still haven't heard the reason why you visited the Holy Temple without notice, especially in that form. Un let out a sigh and quickly explained. His Highness the Crown Prince was looking for me. He continued to explain another matter. As for why I turned into an animal, Emilon placed her teacup on the table with a clink and uttered, yes. Un flashed a confident smile that outshone the sun. Then he gave a nonsensical answer, just for a bit of fun and entertainment. Hearing such a curt answer, Emilon tried to force a benevolent smile, but was very annoyed inside. This guy, he really knows how to annoy people, doesn't he? Recalling when he turned into a puppy and played happily with the little girl Chan. Unanalyzed for her, I saw a child around the Holy Temple gate and thought I would approach in a friendly way. As you know, this form is quite approachable for children. After listening for a while, her face froze into a deadpan smile as she thought to herself, Chin did like it. I just wish you hadn't pounced on me in that form. Continued to state his reason for coming. I came here to meet the Saintess. I haven't had a chance to meet you because I was abroad for a while. I'm very curious about what the rumored Saintess is like. Gasidra, sitting next to him, looked clearly bored listening to his bragging. Emilon immediately raised her hand to cut him off. You came here just for that? Un replied innocently. That's right. Faced with Yuen's carefree attitude that showed no regard for anyone, she sat primly on the chair opposite him and said seriously, Young Master Teravan, I was taught that visiting without notice is extremely impolite. Am I mistaken? Seeing that the atmosphere was also tense, Un also lowered his head and his voice, no, you are right. If you want to punish me for this mistake, I am ready to accept it. Emilon looked at him and thought to herself, he says that so casually, doesn't he? Does he think I won't let him be punished? Looking at Un, who was looking at her with confident, fearless eyes, she pondered, if he really has heard the rumors about me, he wouldn't think I'm an overly merciful saintess, would he? That confidence is truly suspicious. Gasidra, who had been listening, took out a pink gift box and spoke up, if you need time to decide, why don't you let me state my business first? Emilon then asked back, didn't you say His Highness the Crown Prince came here to find you, young master? He pointed to the gift box on the table and said, that's just a secondary issue that arose from his rude behavior. The main reason I'm here is because of this. Emilon glanced at the box he was opening and wondered, what is this? He replied, at the hunting festival, I took your shawl. Inside the box was a yellow handkerchief with a white flower pattern. Gasidra continued, it was damaged beyond repair, so I had a new one made. Then he looked at her as if speaking from the bottom of his heart. I also want to take this opportunity to express my deep gratitude to the Holy Temple for treating me. Emilon held the box in her hands and replied politely, it's really nothing. She thought to herself again, I didn't expect this. Has the Crown Prince always been this thoughtful? I thought he had forgotten, just like me. Although the gift was in her hands, she still brought up the old matter. I would be happier if you had informed me in advance of your visit. Gasidra explained helplessly, this guy's father insisted that we come today. Emilon stared at Un and thought, the Teravan family are loyal vassals of the Crown Prince, so they must be quite close. Un turned to ask Gasidra, Your Highness, are you blaming me? Then he continued to ramble on, who am I? As if waiting for this moment, he quickly grabbed the gift box and put it in his coat. Before he could finish speaking, Gasidra reached out and covered his mouth, cutting off this talkative fool. Gasidra immediately spoke up. It seems we have displeased the Saintess today. Don't worry, I will deal with this fool myself. He hastily took his leave from her. Then we'll be going. See you at the Spirit Festival later, Saintess. Emilon smiled politely and replied, yes, take care. But she thought, I hope I don't see young Master Teravan again. A moment passed. The scene changes to another location. Un burst in from outside, opening the door and shouting cheerfully, I'm back, your majesty. A man was already waiting inside for him. He immediately instructed Un, don't call me that. Others might hear and misunderstand. He replied calmly and indifferently, I know you've already used a soundproofing spell. Then spoke clearly and confidently to him. But more importantly, you are curious about something, aren't you? He replied, that's right, and seeing you so enthusiastic makes me even more curious. More. He finally made a mysterious, fleeting appearance, a man in a white shirt and a yellow tie. He clasped his hands under his chin and asked coldly, so, what kind of person is a saintess? The scene changes to the day the Festival of Spirits begins. This is a festival to give thanks and pray, as well as to bless the goddess who opened heaven and earth. Held once every 5 years, the festival lasts for a whole week, and nations at war are required to call a truce during this time. This is a ceremony with deep meaning for everyone, and especially meaningful for a saintess like myself. It is the day when, despite being human, the saintess is fully revered as the embodiment of God. Emilon remembered earlier when the maids surrounded her excitedly to take care of her, which was very troublesome. Because it was such an important day, the priests and maids joined forces to prepare me. It was tiring trying to tell them to tone it down. Looking down below, the masses all looked up at her with admiration and respect. She thought to herself, not only nobles from many countries, but even the emperor kneels before me to show their reverence. Renee Ben, riding a horse, looked over at her and exclaimed in surprise, Lady Emilon. She then understood why he was so surprised. According to usual noble etiquette, one must cover their face when moving. It is said that a noble's face cannot be easily revealed to commoners. But Emilon replied, it's all right, Renee Ben. Then she said cheerfully, full of life, today is a day for me. Looking at Renee Ben, she made a request. So today, can you indulge me? He said loyally, I will always follow your wishes, Saintess. Emilon laughed loudly in reply, all right. At this moment in the crowd outside, a child was trying to squeeze through the adults. Because it was so crowded, they jostled and accidentally knocked the child, causing it to cry out. The child was pushed by the crowd and stumbled out, falling flat on its face on the ground. A guard pointed straight at the child and scolded, hey, do you know where you're crawling? The child was startled and let out a cry. The guard grabbed the child's hand tightly and shouted, what do you think you're doing? Get out of here, you poor thing. The miserable child cried out, it hurts. Emilon appeared like a deity and spoke up, wait, stop. She leaned out and told Renee Ben, stop the parade. Then the carriage was stopped. She stepped out of the carriage and said, Renee Ben, I have a request. Handle this interruption and bring the child here, right before me. Renee Ben replied, I will be right back. Over here, the guard had grabbed the boy's arm and was dragging him away. He yelled, yeah, what are you crying for? Making the boy tremble all over. He frowned and continued to shout loudly, how dare you ruin a good day like today? Renee Ben arrived and cut him off. Stop, get away from the child. The guard saw Renee Ben and turned pale, his mouth agape, calling out, High Priest. Renee Ben, sitting on his horse, looked down at him and said, do you see that the parade has been halted? Your improper conduct has disturbed the Saintess. However, the guard tried to argue back, pointing at the boy and saying, but this child interrupted the parade. I was just trying to prevent the Saintess from seeing this disgrace. Renee Ben shouted, that's enough. I will remember your face and the family you serve. Now get back to your post immediately. Hearing that, he immediately ran off as if in a marathon. Renee Ben said to the boy, this way. Then he extended his hand towards the child, whose teary eyes looked on. Renee Ben returned to Emilon's side and said, I have brought the child. Emilon said happily, very good. Then looking down at the child sitting in Renee Ben's arms, she asked, little one, what is your name? The boy looked at her blankly. Seeing the child say nothing, Renee Ben reminded him, the Saintess just asked you a question. Show your reverence and answer, which startled the child into stammering, seeing this. Emilon put her hands on her hips and told him, Renee Ben, you know I didn't ask you to bring the child here to receive a greeting. Renee Ben stammered, but that is the only way to show reverence to the Saintess. I apologize. She cheerfully extended her hand towards the child. All right, can you tell me your name? At her gentle touch, the child blushed and said, Devil, my name is Devil. Your name means Holy Bell. The child repeated, Holy Bell. She smiled and said to him, that's right, what a lovely name. The Holy Temple will like it too. Hearing her say that, Devil said, but I often get teased because of this. Name. Is that so? But I think your name is very lovely. She gave a jar of candy to Devil and introduced herself. My name is Emilon. Renee Ben, at her side, interjected, the saintess's name means a bird's wings soaring into the sky. That's right. Devil took the jar of candy from her hand. Hearing her speak, if you are in trouble, come to the holy temple. I will let them know in advance. I will tell them to open the doors wide when the child named Holy Bell arrives. Devil called out, Saintess. She was surprised. He said, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for always watching over me. Emilon was surprised and said nothing. Stepping down from the carriage, she finally spoke. I am the one who should thank you. Let's walk to the palace, Renee Ben. Oh yes, she thought. Words hold power. I wish for everyone to be happy. So I hope my sincerity reaches everyone. Arriving at the royal palace, everyone came forward to pay their respects. Greetings to the blessing of God. She looked at everyone and thought, I heard the noble's attitude has changed, but this is the first time I've seen it with my own eyes. After thinking, she raised her glass and said, May God bless you both. Interestingly, it wasn't just looks of fear, but there were also some who were admiring. Emilon said to Renee Ben, aside from the royal family, no one can look down on us anymore. Renee Ben agreed. Yes, it seems even His Majesty the Emperor is now paying attention to the actions of the Holy Temple. Because now that Lady Emilon is here, we will no longer be ignored. She continued, they have finally realized how much they have looked down on us until now. The Holy Temple has absolute power, as God is behind us. Only a fool would challenge us without knowing they are in danger. Renee Ben asked in surprise, is there really someone who dares to challenge the Holy Temple? She narrowed her eyes and said, of course, I've already told you what you need to prepare, haven't I? The Empire has maintained its royal bloodline for many generations, if its power is stable. But the Wesley Empire, maintained through the Emperor's bloodline, is starting to waver. It's only a matter of time before they have a conflict. Oh, speaking of which, where's Princess Nestra? Renee Ben replied, well, if she has arrived, wouldn't she come to pay her respects? Do you have a particular reason for looking for her? Emilon wondered. No, Renee Ben. Don't you want to see the princess? Renee Ben looked at her in surprise. Hummy, no, not at all. Why would you think that? She clicked her tongue. Jessie, beside her, tilted her head and asked in her stead, Sir Renee Ben, don't you have feelings for Princess Nestra? Hearing that, Renee Ben turned pale and said, Jessie Pacha, avoid saying such things. She replied softly, I'm sorry. Renee Ben continued, that's all in the past. I don't want to be tied down by it anymore. Emilon still wouldn't let him off. What? Renee Ben, are you saying you don't love the princess? Renee Ben's jaw dropped as he said, you too? Lady Emilon, why are you asking that? She looked at him and thought, are Renee Ben's feelings for the princess so shallow that they can fade away so easily? No, that's not it. But at least there should have been a sign of giving up. Why is there no trace of it at all? While thinking, she smelled something. What is this strange feeling? Emilon immediately turned to ask Jessie, do you smell something sweet? She didn't understand and just made a questioning sound, while Renee Ben, seeing this, asked her, what's wrong? She looked down and said to herself, how strange, the smell is very strong. It's unknown what Emilon saw that made her eyes widen in. Astonishment. Following her gaze, she saw a young man being grabbed by an arm. Below, a brown-haired young man was being grabbed and pulled out by an old, silver-haired man. She only heard him say, wait, stop. Seeing this, Emilon shot up. What on earth is that? She immediately ran down the stairs in pursuit, simultaneously ordering, Renee Ben, bring 2 knights and follow me. Renee Ben called from behind, Lady Emilon. Seeing that she had followed, the old man was startled. Huh? Emilon looked inside and asked, are you all right? Inside was the brown-haired boy, looking at her blankly. Then he called out, Saintess. Thank you for watching today's video. Our story continues with many exciting developments ahead. So don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel to support us and not miss the latest chapters. We wish you relaxing and happy moments. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.